Hello, people! Where has Bounce Man been? In case you missed it, I mentioned on my community tab, my arena account is like out of order at the moment. Matches just won't load. It sucks because I actually really wanted to draft MH3, but guess that's not gonna happen. So, the arena streams are out of order until Wizards patches it out. I already sent them a support ticket to let them know that I can't do anything. I've done everything I can. I reinstalled Arena. I logged out, logged back in. I've done literally everything I can think of. Try and fix it to no avail. So it's gotta be an issue on their end, I'd imagine at this point. So in the meantime, today we are gonna be reacting to this Spice. Where my mouse not gonna show up on the. I guess it doesn't. Okay. We're reacting to this Spice8Rack video about the magic and the death of the future. Why is there what? Oh my god! What is happening? Sorry, hang on. There we go. Okay. This video is 2 hours long, so so between my commentary and my occasional pausing, this stream is gonna be like 4 hours long, maybe. But I need to get something out there content wise right now, which it's I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do. So we're doing this. Spice, if you see this stream somehow or the future video of this, and you don't like what I gotta say, and you don't like what I gotta say, just reach out to me. I'll take a stream down the video. I'll take it down if you need me to, want me to. It's all good. All right. So this is Magic the Gathering and the Death of the Future by Spice8Rack. This is gonna be quite an experience, I think. Why did you refresh? What? Is audio good? I think it's fine. What is going on, bro?
In February of 2022, Hasbro CEO Chris Cox, best known for overseeing the firing of over 1,000 employees shortly before Christmas Day, announced that due to the incredible success of the Lord of the Rings Tales of Middle-earth Magic the Gathering set, Wizards of the Coast would be releasing 2 similarly sized Universe Beyond products in 2025. Quoted by Chase Carter in Dicebreaker magazine, he said to investors, "We think we'll have a similar uplift as we did for Lord of the Rings, and that's underlying a lot of our bullishness on the growth of magic."
Yep.
I don't know what Chris Cox actually sounds like, but I also don't actually care.
And you shouldn't.
It is unclear as to whether or not these prospective products will be replacing in-universe Magic expansions, but 2 in 1 year would certainly crowd an already fit-to-bursting release schedule unless something got cut and pushed back.
That's true.
Tales of Middle-earth was a watershed moment for Magic the Gathering, being the second modern legal set to be produced in draftable booster packs, which exclusively and explicitly explores a non-Magic IP, and the first IP originating outside of Wizards of the Coast themselves. It was ludicrously successful to boot, being the second best-selling Magic the Gathering set of all time, as reported.
Wait, second? I thought it was first. I thought it was the first best-selling. What? Hang on. I actually want to see that. One moment. I could have swore it did. I thought it was MH2 for a long time, and then. Okay, what? I search MTG best sets of all time, and I'm greeted with a $10,000 Armored Ascension. What is this? Bro, what? Okay. Even then, this is not answering my question. Really? Really? Oh, that's why. Only one Magic has outsold Lord of the Rings. Okay, yeah, it's MH2. All right, cool. All right then. I thought it was I thought Lord of the Rings beat MH2, but I guess not. My bad.
Ported by Matt Bassel at Wargamer, beaten out only by Modern Horizons 2. Previous to this, Universes Beyond had been constrained, if you can call it that, to constructed products like Commander decks and special secret lair releases, themselves a relatively recent addition in Magic's 30-year history, depicting recognizable characters from shows like Doctor Who, cartoons like Transformers, and video games like Fortnite. This last example being deliciously
Look at Fortnite, dude. Why do we do that?
Fortnite's most prominent feature is its staggeringly large and ever-growing roster of IP tie-ins.
Yep.
From characters like Thanos to human performers like The Weeknd to concepts like the Kamehameha. No commodifiable notion or recognizable likeness is safe from this vortex of culture. If there is an image, logo, or story that prompts positive recognition in the minds of 8 to 38-year-olds, Epic Games has already sent its owner an email begging to cut a check for a licensed skin. And Hasbro is not far behind.
Yep.
Tap Terra's golden
I agree.
throne to cast the ever-humble Autobot Ultra Magnus. Give him haste with Gimli's reckless might, and put Mr. House, President and CEO, into play when he attacks. With Assassin's Creed, Final Fantasy, Marvel, and more as yet unrevealed shallow depths to plumb, who's to say what part of Magic's waning originality will be skipped over and ignored to make room for Tales from Arkham Asylum, or Magic the Gathering, a Star Wars story. Before Fortnite and Magic, all that is solid melts into air. All that is holy is profane.
What is this?
And man
What
is
is
at last
this?
faced with sober senses.
Where did you find this, bro?
And his relations with his kind. The need of a constantly expanding market for its products chases the bourgeoisie over the entire surface of the globe. It must nestle everywhere, settle everywhere, establish connections everywhere. So is this a good or a bad thing?
Oh, we got an intro now.
You know, no,
I didn't know that.
I preferred Spice8Rack's earlier work.
So, I want to say real quick that the scenario described where it's like a bunch of different, you know what, I probably need to make it like a whole new thing for this, actually. That's fine. I think the scenario Spice describes of like a bunch of different cards from different IPs sets being able to like, you know, all being on board at once, where it's like, you know, a Transformers card and a Fallout card and a Lord of the Rings card and all these like clashing IPs. That can happen, but to this day, I know everyone's meta is different, everyone's LGS is different. I don't think I've ever seen more than 2 IPs on the same person's board. So which makes me question how legitimate of a complaint the whole like multiple IPs entering Magic is, because the cards exist, sure, but I feel like most of the time at least in my games, this is Commander, mind you. Like, unless someone's playing like a precon from one of the Universe Beyond sets, I feel like I almost never actually see Universe Beyond cards in general, right? I want to say the last one I saw was Orcish Bowmasters, and that was like months ago. I think it might have been like a Mothman precon I played against lately, but even then, it's still like it just makes you question how big of a concern the multiple clashing IPs thing is. Regarding the other point he made about regarding the other point he made about how Universe Beyond is going to be a 2 sets a year thing, my prediction for that is Hasbro is going to quickly realize that those aren't going to make as much money as the Lord of the Rings set, because Lord of the Rings is the Hail Mary, right? Like obviously, Magic, early Magic was very clearly inspired from Lord of the Rings and those like typical generic fantasy tropes. So obviously, Lord of the Rings is gonna be a dream come true. Once you start branching into other IPs, I feel like the amount of money to be made drops drastically. So my prediction for that is that Hasbro is going to adopt the 2 years beyond sets a year, and then they're going to realize, okay, these sets actually don't make anywhere near as much money as Lord of the Rings did. So drop them, and we'll have the 2 sets a year for like 2, 3, 4 years, and then they'll go back to regular releases. That's my prediction.
As well. Yeah, its new stuff is kind of derivative. Oh, hello, spicy people of the internet. I'm Spice8Rack, aka Ignigo Montoya if the wokes got to him, and welcome back to the channel. The dialectic teaches us that all things exist in a state of growth or decay, that the old is dying and the new is struggling to be born. So when we look at Wizards and Hasbro's increasingly unsustainable growth targets, mass layoffs, and slashed language and region support for the global south, it's easy to view this as having a causal relationship with the direction the game itself has gone in. Magic dying in a financial sense becomes conflated with people's personal grievances with Magic's diluted identity. A picture of a collectible Ezio Auditore da Firenze with the caption "Magic is dead" is synonymous with the same caption above a picture of Hasbro's languishing stock price, or even a screenshot of a wiki page updated to confirm the homosexuality of a background character. The rarely proven idiom of "go woke, go broke" trotted out here by those who have decided to make their messy divorce everybody else's problem. Even if such declarations that Magic is dead occur every time a product bombs or a game system is reworked, without the company collapsing or the game actually dying, for many people the death of Magic has already happened in a more abstract capacity. Of course, the dialectic also teaches us that there are no fixed states of things. The death of a game, certainly an analog one like Magic, is hardly ever a definite thing. Even if WotC closed its doors forever tomorrow, Magic wouldn't be dead. Netrunner, another card game designed by Richard Garfield, has been out of production since WotC failed to renew Fantasy Flight Games' license to produce it back in 2018. But since then, a community-oriented non-profit, Null Signal Games, has unofficially produced expansions, run tournaments, maintains ban lists, and generally keeps the game ticking along. Having spoken to some people who still play it, ticking along better now than ever before.
I'm very curious on what his point here is. Like, so, is he saying that, like, Magic won't ever die, because even if WotC does close their doors tomorrow, the game's still gonna exist. We're just not gonna get any new cards. So, is he pivoting and saying that Versus Beyond isn't that bad? Actually, I'm not sure. Let's keep watching.
Netrunner is dead. Long live Netrunner. In that vein, how many Commander evenings do you attend that have no WotC sanctioning? Would you simply never pick your cards up again if you knew no more were being officially made? If a ball rolls to you in the park, do you feel a desire to boot it back to the group who lost it?
Yes.
Even though there's no intrinsic motive beyond play guiding you to do so? Well, do you?
Yeah.
You debauched communist gay? Of course, the death of the companies that produce Magic is as inevitable as the setting of the sun. Decay is inexorable, even if it really doesn't need to be hastened quite as fast as it arguably is right now. But that's not what interests me. I want to talk about something more ephemeral. What the state of the game says about the systems under which it is produced.
Here we go. What you got, Spice? What you got?
They weren't doing as easy.
before we get too high and mighty, let us not pretend we are made of stone. We each have childhood joys, memories of media from our youth, and foundational texts that changed how we came to understand the world around us. It would be a delight and a treat for Magic, this game that we all love to play in one way or another, to be a medium to explore those artifacts again and to introduce them to new people. Never do I have a conversation about Universes Beyond with players, no matter how much they hate the concept, where they don't volunteer the exception to their distaste.
Universes Beyond is the death of Magic the Gathering,
they say, shortly followed by,
but if they made a Master Chief secret lair, I'm all in, baby. Wild horses couldn't hold me back.
So, to lay...
I agree that is, like, one complaint I see a lot, is that, like, there are people who, like, complain about Universe Beyond, but then immediately proceed to say that, like, oh, well, actually, if they made a set of my favorite IP, I'd be cool with it. So, which I think speaks a lot to, like, there's probably a ton of, like, underlying hypocrisy about Universes Beyond in general. Because, like, come on, you're not gonna watch your favorite IP get made to a Magic set and not think, damn, that shit's cool. You're not, there's no way. If you like seeing, I keep doing Spice so dirty here. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry, bro. If your favorite IP set got, if your favorite IP got a set made in Magic, you're not gonna think it's not cool. You're gonna like that. There's no way. If anyone can actually be honest and say, I would love this. If there's anyone out there who actually be honest and say, I would love if my IP got into a Magic set, but I don't think they should because it's bad for the game overall, then more power to them. Because I almost never see that. Me personally, I'd love to see, like, Kingdom Hearts get made into a Magic set. I know it's, like, never going to happen because Disney is pretty much just soul-bound to Kingdom Hearts at this point. But it's still, it's something I'd like to see. Final Fantasy is probably the closest I'm ever going to get to that. And I've never played a Final Fantasy game. That's not true. I've played, like, 2, but those are, like, super old ones that aren't really even close to what Final Fantasy is nowadays.
Cards on the table, if you'll pardon the pun, and you will. This is my channel, you will do what I say. Here is the list of the Universes Beyond that, no matter what I'm about to say in the rest of this video, I could not help but be excited to see in print. Doctor Who was already a big one. Tennant and Tate gave formative performances, but Eccleston has grown to be my favourite Doctor as time goes on. His episodes are still phenomenal, and I've even gone as far as to make a fun extra upkeeps commander deck based on him. For the rest, they are mainly articles of British media, you know, back when our cultural exports varied beyond Harry Potter remake slop and game shows poorly masquerading as social experiments.
Ooh, will a series of perfect strangers lie to each other for a life-changing amount of money? Yeah, of course they will, Claudia. Olive oil costs £13 a litre at Big Tesco. It's either betrayal or revolution. Which way?
Is British TV that bad right now? I have no idea.
I would be unashamedly excited to see the following. Douglas Adams' Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy would be a treat. Ideally,
I've literally never heard of this. What is that? I've never heard of that. I've heard of Doctor Who, but it was only like here and there because it's mostly a British, like, IP. I've never heard of this.
I would literally never stop drafting a standard legal set exploring Discworld.
I don't know what that is.
A slight non-UK tangent. 4 Soulsborne commander decks based on Boletaria, Lordran, Drangleic, and Yharnam would allow me to stall EDH pods by recycling H-Bomber Guy's correct opinions about DS2 being the best game in the series. Returning to this awful country, I would positively perish to see British children...
Bro, you cannot just say Dark Souls 2 is the best game in the series. Ain't no fucking way. Ain't no way. Alright, it's not bad. Alright, it's not bad. DS2 is not bad. It's not a bad game. But best in this series? I mean, the PvP was amazing, I ain't gonna lie. But I'll be here for an extra 20 minutes if I get into soul semantics here on stream. So let's just continue.
Children's TV characters put to cardstock. The Clangers, Dick and Dom
Who?
in the Bungalow,
Who?
Mr. Ben, Bagpuss,
Who?
Mr. Blobby, Thomas the Tank Engine.
I know him.
etc.
I know him.
The Sandman books would also be a great source of.
What was that? You don't know Mr. Blobby?
No.
Oh, ye unsullied youth, ye unsuspecting student, gather thyself and prepare to sup the nectar of education.
Oh, okay, I got you. What is? Okay. What is that thing, bro?
Enough silliness. Now it's time to talk about capitalism.
Of course.
You're smart.
Because capitalism always comes to consume everything you love. Always. Always.
There is, or at least was, a knee-jerk reaction and dislike of Universes Beyond. On the one hand, few people celebrated the idea of mechanically unique cards getting printed in limited quantities and with jarring artwork. It varies from subject matter to subject matter and lessens the more this becomes normalized as what Magic is now, but still a majority of the player base seems unhappy with constant real-world likenesses presented in the Magic frame.
Yes.
Especially when there is pressure to remain current.
Dude, there's literally... We're literally getting the actual historical figure, Leonardo da Vinci, in a Magic set. I understand that it's like the Assassin's Creed depiction of him. Dude, that's a real person. That's a fucking real person, bro. That's not okay. Are we gonna get MLK in a card? When is that gonna happen? Please no. Please don't do that.
If my Humans deck is the talk of the LGS, is the thing to beat whenever Commander Night rolls around, I'd be pretty annoyed if I now felt obliged to slot a $50 reference to a TV show that ended a decade ago into it in order to remain on top of my reputation. Sorry, what was that? The Walking Dead ran until 2022?
Really?
I guess they had to stop shooting when their main zombie actor died.
Oh.
Magic had a consistent reality, or rather hyper-reality, that many feel has been shredded by the sudden inclusion of quote-unquote real-world characters. Even if this isn't actually the first time such an event has happened. Images like Albert Einstein appearing on a Legends card.
That's
the
true.
seldom reprinted Portal 3 Kingdoms cards, which explored the historic legends of the Three Kingdoms era of Chinese history, and the occasional celebrity lookalike were either lampooned as missteps, enjoyed as happy accidents, or acknowledged as experiments not to be repeated.
Fucking Blessed Kenobi looks like a Circle of the Moon druid. What?
They were never considered particularly impactful. Easy to dismiss by those who wish to, fun to cherish for everybody else. One fascinating way that Magic unabrasively, yet unambiguously consolidated elements from the real world into the game is through depictions of players and other community members in card art. Beginning in 1990.
These are cool. We just got a new one with Duels of the Mind. I really hope we continue to get more of these like actual players depicted on real cards. I really hope we get to see more of that because those are cool. And going back to his previous point earlier about how like some players are feeling like disenfranchised with the game now because of all the real world actors. I don't like it either, but I do think, as I said earlier, I almost never see like Universe Beyond cards in my games. Again, just my experience. This is my LGS scene. I almost never see Universe Beyond cards except for like a couple of outliers. Like I play the One Ring in my Negasar Lich deck, and I think that's it. I think the last Universe Beyond card I saw lately was Orcish Bowmasters, and that was like last month. But then again, I also don't really get to play Magic nowadays in person very much, so that could also be part of the reason. But so, going back to that, I think it is very easy to separate the actual IRL cards from the game itself. I think it's very easy, because I mean, like, if we do get an Iron Man card, right, and it's gonna have Robert Downey Jr. on it, right? I doubt it's gonna be like an Orcish Bowmasters type design, right? Like all the cards featuring real actors and whatnot have all been on like cards that are very clearly designed for Commander, very clearly. So unless you're playing them as a Commander, you're probably not gonna see them. Or maybe someone's playing like a, I don't know, Jurassic Park Vorthos deck, right? You might see it there. So like, I do think that depicting actors on fictional characters shouldn't be a thing that happens. I do think that that does lead to a bit of like breaking the illusion of the fantasy. I do think it does do that. I would prefer if we just got like, you know, actual depictions of like fictional characters. Like for example, right? I've seen the take before regarding the upcoming Marvel set, like where it's, I can handle an Iron Man card, I cannot handle a Robert Downey Jr. card, and that's a sentiment I 100% agree with and understand. Because again, it does break the illusion, but at the same time, it's, I think a lot of people make it a bigger issue than it actually is, because how many, for example, how many of the Jurassic Park cards with the actual like IRL actors on them have you seen in your games in the past, I'll say 2 months? Because for me it's 0. I've seen none so far. I've seen no actual IRL actor cards in real life lately at all. None whatsoever. So I do think it is a little easy to kind of just separate the cards from the game itself. Moving on.
96, the year I was born, by the way, player invitational cards were designed to commemorate the winners of the annual Magic Invitational Tournament, a competition between a curated roster of pro players. It took some time for each card to go from design to print, with the first ever invitational card taking 5 years to release, but eventually the likenesses of the winners of these tournaments would be officially introduced into the game. Sylvan Safekeeper, Snapcaster Mage, and the deeply apt Solemn Simulacrum were unmarked commemorations of some of Magic's best players. This program saw a decades-long hiatus after 2007, but returned in 2019 to celebrate the winners of Magic's World Championship.
Dude, I didn't even know this was an actual person. I had no idea. This is the fucking the Mandela effect, right? This is not real. This line of text is not here. It's not. There's no way. Hang on. Hang on. Fucking hang on. Hang on. There's no way. There's no way. There's no way. Nope. Nope. It's there. It's totally there. I'm just stupid. I'm just stupid. Oh wait, you can't see that. Hang on. I know I suck. I'm sorry. Oh great, now it's broken. Wonderful. No. Oh my god, I'm so sorry, y'all. I'm not good at the whole making content thing. I know. I'm sorry. There it is. Look, it's real. It's real. I'm just stupid. All right, cool. Back to what we were doing. Is this gonna load? Nope, it's not. God, fucking. Oh my god. It's my fault. I'm sorry.
With commemorative flavor text demarcated from the rest of the card through a faint horizontal line. In the reception to these cards, we see the inverse of the disdain aimed towards universes beyond products. They are fondly remembered, and I recall the news that they would be returning was met with jubilation.
Yep.
They were also viewed as being particularly prestigious accomplishments where that pedigree ought to be reflected in their power in-game. Much maligning was made when, for example, Terry So's player invitational card Rakdos Orgmage lacked the impact of the cards that came before and after it, sandwiched as it was between Bob Mayer on Dark Confidant and Anton Ruel in Ranger of Eos.
Bro, there are so... I didn't know either of these were real people. I had no idea. Rakdos Orgmage is a player card? What?
Players, it seemed, wanted their admired professionals to have their likenesses printed on cards that would, themselves, go on to win tournaments. Even more interesting, when these cards began to see reprints with updated and in-universe artwork, there was player contention as to if this was appropriate.
Yep.
In online forums at the time, Dark Confidant,
I remember that,
referred to as Bob in reference to the player whose card it was announced to be reprinted in the first Mon Masters set with new artwork. Some players called the move a slap in the face. People still wishing they used Bob Mayer's likeness in a new piece of art for the card. And others
didn't Ristic Dice make a video about this too? He made a video about how like Wizards replacing the art of the Pro Tour player's likeness was like an actual like kind of insult. I could have swore Ristic Dice made a video about that, but I could be wrong. And I do kind of agree that like it's their card, they designed it, their likeness should probably still exist on the card, even if I do think that the Modern Masters Dark Confidant art is a little better, in my opinion. That's just one I prefer.
Hoping that people wouldn't call the new art confidant Bob. There's a preciousness to it, an empathy extended by fans who would cherish the cards that they were printed on if only they were so lucky to be acknowledged and immortalized by Wizards of the Coast. There are other ways in which texts outside of Magic have been incorporated into the game without friction. References to famous artwork like American Gothic, photographs like Lunch Atop a Skyscraper, real-world holidays like All Hallows Eve, and video games like Plants vs. Zombies have all made their way into the game either in artistic or mechanical reference. M15 went even further, producing an experimental series of...
Hey Bounce, I've been watching for a bit now. You've quickly become my favorite MTG YouTuber. Keep making content. Thank you, bro. I appreciate that. Bro. Thank you for that.
Cards designed by popular figures within
welcome to the stream, Red Cloud.
Culture. Edmund Macmillan, one of the key designers behind games like The Binding of Isaac, helped to create the card Cruel Sadist, a
not that one, no.
and violent child.
I think a different card.
Penny Arcade helped to produce Avarice Amulet, an artifact which continually changes hands when the creature it's equipped to dies, a reference to a Pac-Man watch that the characters of that story covet, steal, and harm each other over. And Marcus Pearson, creator of Minecraft, helped to create Aggressive Mining, whose art and mechanics encourage the destruction of notably cubic land. A not-so-subtle reference to how Pearson destroyed his reputation by continuing to dig into new depths of conspiratorial transphobia and racism.
Yeah.
There was even a card designed by the quote-unquote magic community, where rules
and it's really good too
to public vote, eventually creating one of the most interesting discard combo pieces of all time. This card is also the only time that Magic has been referenced on cardstock outside of unofficial Magic productions and Silver Border parody sets. But all of these...
Is that true? Is that... There's no way, right? Surely the word Magic appears on a card. I don't know if when he says that he means like Magic the game or Magic like the word Magic. Hang on. I'll put it in the lore finder, I guess, on Scryfall. No, okay, he's referring to the actual game itself. Okay. My bad.
These examples beg the question. Why did these forms of reality bleeding into Magic fail to produce the kind of uproar and continued displeasure that Universes Beyond products do, where sometimes their removal from the game is actually the cause of discontent?
So, before he says his piece about that, I believe that what this is there's two instances, right? There's the super old Magic is like a young game. We're not really fully developed yet. We sometimes let little pop culture references slip through the cracks, like with the Albert Einstein card, and then there's the second group, which is the Pro Tour players. I feel like the first one, it was just like no one cared because the game was like a very small fraction of what it is today. So now it's like, you know, 20 years from now, when people look back at Max the Daredevil, are people gonna be? Is that gonna enrage them and be like, oh God, what the hell? 20 years ago, there was a Max the Daredevil card from Stranger Things. Burn my collection. Like, no, I don't think it's gonna happen. So I'd say that's more so just an issue of like past problems. In fact, that the game was just like extremely young back then, which makes you think that it's just not gonna be a problem by today's standards. As for the Pro Tour players, I mean, again, those are, I mean, for one, they're real people that are associated with Magic, right? They're already closely knit to Magic. It's not like, which actually makes me beg the question, if an esteemed like actor actually got into MTG and made them being a part of MTG like a big part of their like online persona, would that cause uproar? If Jason Momoa won a pro tour and he got his own card, would that make people mad? And people start saying, "Oh, it's an Aquaman card." I don't know. Be funny to see how that play out though. That scenario that will never ever happen, right? But I think this issue is just like, it's not fantasy. They're just like, the Pro Tour cards are just like real players who are just that. They're players who care about the game, want the game to succeed, and that's it. And then removing that is insulting to those people because, I mean, again, they're players. They just want the game to be good. And I think the Universe Beyond sets are kind of just like, I don't think it's unfair to say that the Universe Beyond sets are not being made due to passion for those IPs. They're more so being made in an effort to appease the voracious god that is Hasbro. Because we all know that Hasbro is now just kind of like, hold the wizards on a leash, make me money, mush, make me money. So that's what I think it is. Let's see what Spice has to say.
Well, it's because all of these either fail to challenge the hyper-reality of Magic or have already been captured by it. Hyper-reality, a term coined by postmodern philosopher Jean Baudrillard. For the record, I do realize that's not how it's said, but I did spend my entire Mill versus Discard video citing Michael Foucault, so I'm just going to lean into it, and from here on out, I'm going to get the names of specifically French philosophers purposefully wrong.
Got it.
Hyperreality
Understood.
refers to a situation where signs of the real have substituted the real in our world. As an example, American Gothic, pastiched twice in artwork throughout Magic's history, became such a touchstone for contemporary American culture that its recognizability, its value as a sign, has triumphed over its value as a piece of art. The orcs and zombies assuming the stances of Grant Wood's Iowan farmers do not jar with our understanding of Magic's game world because American Gothic has become a floating signifier, standing for nothing and infinitely interpretable, seamless to co-opt into any reality or fiction, becoming hyper-real. Its twice simulated replication in Worlds Beyond Earth as easy to accept as the overalls worn and pitchforks wielded by the subjects of these pieces, as normal and expected as the existence of fire and men who ruin everything. Player, creator, and commentator likenesses can also be included in this analysis. Just as with how reality television produces discourses around exaggerated social tensions, the careers and likenesses of famous Magic players, designers, and commentators are one in the same with the game world of Magic. Bob is so called because Dark Confidant has Bob Mayer on it. It is his card.
Yep.
It is him.
Yep.
Magic's world is presented as imaginary in order to make us believe that the rest, the community which surrounds it, is real. But this is no longer, if it ever has been, the case. These cards, in part, betray that. The real world which surrounds Magic, gameplay, performances, video essays, professional tournaments, in-jokes, drama, etc., are all still part of the simulation. Not simulation in the sense that this is all orchestrated and designed by some malevolent higher power, you understand? We're talking about postmodernism here, not Andrew Tate bollocks.
Yep.
Simulation in the sense that this
Fuck him.
community is as much a part of the narrative of this game as the game is itself, driven by new consumption of new simulacra, replications and replacements of reality. This is an uncomfortable thing to consider, Just how much of our enjoyment of this game, our pleasure in general, is entrenched in hyper-reality, a subject for bourgeois colonization.
Okay, real quick, I just want to make sure I'm actually understanding that word correctly, like what he's saying. Because I think I'm starting to kind of lose him a bit here. Hyper-reality is the inability of consciousness to distinguish reality from a simulation of reality, especially in technologically advanced societies. The inability of consciousness to distinguish reality from a simulation of reality. So, I think what he's trying to say is that, like, we're so attuned to the idea of, like, real characters existing in Magic that now we're at a point where it's like that illusion is being broken due to Universe Beyond, and that's why there's so much backlash to it. I think that's what he's saying, and I can kind of get the idea behind that, but I don't know. Let me see where he goes with this before I say more. Cause I think he's gonna give some key content here in a moment.
Real jokes around plastic LGS tables about forgotten curiosities of Magic's past transfer to forums to be picked up by designers to be turned into new commodities for purchase. Simulacra of that original moment of connection. How much joy is lost as a result of being officially sanctioned and marketized. How much of this game, its mechanics, story, and events are brought to life through focus groups, model simulations, and market research as opposed to passionate spontaneity. How much of a source of joy for thousands of us is organized by the same principles that gave us the Gatewatch Hot Pockets.
Oh, God.
I myself am part of this hyper-reality. I am called by my online name in person, talked to about my videos, thanked by some for using my voice for certain issues, verbally abused and sometimes threatened with violence by others for those same issues. Fan art has been produced of me in Magic canon. I am sponsored by a company which distributes Magic the Gathering product. I am a connecting pipe in this sewer of commerce.
And if you'd like to bling out your commander deck with all the hottest new IP tie-ins, then boy howdy do I have a deal for you. CoolStuffInc.com has got
It never ends. It never ends. It never ends, bro. Capitalism. Capitalism. We need money. People need money to survive. I can't blame him. I can't blame him.
Use my code
What am I gonna tell you?
at the checkout to knock a juicy 5% off any
Sheesh!
purchase you make. Or why not pick up some Fallout cards whilst you're there? Experience a veritable tesseract of layered sign.
I'm not gonna skip it. I'll let him say his piece.
A collectible card wherein a parody of 1950s Cold War info cartoons pastiches the closing scene of Planet of the Apes, the simulacra of his simulacra broken and rusting on the shoreline. A reference couched in a simulation, itself a reference to a simulacra of feigned American egalitarianism. And you can get yours in foil now for only $27.
Foil, bro.
And
Sheesh.
5% off that order with code SPICE. This is not a bit, this is a real brand integration
Yep.
with CoolStuffInc.com. You maniacs, you blew it up. Damn you. Damn you all to hell.
Whoa. Whoa.
When
Hey.
additions to this game challenge the bounds of Magic's hyperreality, there is an extreme reaction. Either negative, bemoaning the death of the game, or strange gallows euphoria, laughing as the shark jumps get ever more ridiculous. I remember sitting in my old office, a 4-foot wide cupboard my at-the-time landlord had laughably passed off as a third bedroom, and giggling with glee when the Magic X Fortnite secret lair was announced. Guffawing as I would if I were watching a death scene in a movie whose shot composition and
Oh, yeah.
choreography
Not this
rendered it
one.
unintentionally hilarious. Some narratives fit into this game with ease. Lord of the Rings is still high fantasy, and its halflings, elves, and orcs do not break our immersion in this multiverse, even if the universes beyond Frame and Holofoil do. Adventures.
I'm very glad he actually mentioned Lord of the Rings here, because I think that's one of the biggest, like, I feel like Lord of the Rings not breaking the fantasy immersion is like one of the biggest pros towards like Universe Beyond. Everyone says, you know, oh well, as long as it doesn't break the immersion of the game, it's fine, right? That's what everyone says. Everyone always saying that. As long as it's break the immersion, it's fine. I don't know, man. I feel like if you don't see the cards at all, it still does not break the immersion, to be honest.
In the Forgotten Realms 2 slots neatly into Magic's hyperreality, although Michelle Rodriguez and Chris Pine's undeniable likenesses fray the edges of acceptability. The Walking Dead...
See, here's the thing, right? I don't know who either of these actors are. I don't recognize their face at all. To me, these cards are... Let me back up just a moment so I actually... No. Back, bro. Not forward. My God.
Michelle Rodriguez and Chris Pine's...
Okay, here we go. These cards don't, like, break the immersion for me because I don't know who these actors are. Which I think is a really important point to take note of. Like, everyone's opinion of Universe Beyond is going to be different just based on, like, how in the know they are. Someone who doesn't know certain IPs aren't going to think certain things are bad. Like, Transformers, right? It's probably a good chance that even if you don't know what Transformers is, you're going to look at these, like, robots who are in this very, like watercolor cartoony style and go like, huh, this is, like, kind of strange here, right? But I think it's a good point to know is that, like, everyone's opinion on Universe Beyond is going to be a little different just based on how much they're aware of, like, what is and isn't an actual actor. I just mentioned earlier how Spice showed off, like, 3-4 cards that had actual, like, Magic players' faces on them, and then I didn't understand that those were real people. So I just, that just flew over me. Same with these things.
Undeniable likenesses fray the edges of acceptability. The Walking Dead,
I agree, Lord of the Rings did
Stranger
do it best.
Things, Assassin's Creed, and the upcoming Marvel collaborations, however, all set more or less on Earth, shatter that lie, as if the fences around Disneyland fell to reveal the cold car parks beyond. There's a definite sense of being late to the party as well, of products out of time, produced long after their licensing rights were hot deals and unable to envision future media connections. Assassin's Creed as a franchise saw its critical heyday come and go in the 2010s. Its games are now busywork simulators, akin to Ghost of Tsushima, Far Cry, and other white-bread Ubisoft-esque sludge buckets designed to hold attention, not challenge it. Seeing Magic the Gathering hype up an Altair card in the year of our Lord 2024 feels like watching an award ceremony hosted by an actor you could have sworn died years ago. The Walking Dead, Fallout, Tomb Raider, Transformers, Marvel, Lord of the Rings, Doctor Who, Godzilla, Jurassic Park...
Godzilla!
...that remain beloved largely in spite of their most recent contributions to the cultural landscape, not because of them. There is certainly nostalgic joy derived from seeing Davros, Yes Man, and Ian Malcolm, but there's no sense of the future here. Magic isn't asking us to watch the rise of a new star, rather just to remember ones that used to shine brighter. Indeed, the only two IPs that Magic has tied in that seem to be on the rise in a meaningful way are Warhammer 40k and Baldur's Gate. The former plainly having one of the most competent marketing teams working in game worlds today, mostly, and the latter being directly connected with Wizards of the Coast already, allowing for sneak previews into, at the time, unreleased material.
The land is more than just dirt.
Talking about Asterion, dude, like, some of those Baldur's Gate characters got fucked over hard, bro. Lae'zel looks nothing like in-game how she does on her card. They fucked Lae'zel up, bro. They fucked her up. I don't know what happened. I don't know what... Like, did they not show the artist a picture of what Lae'zel was going to look like? Why is Lae'zel just like a yellow person? And then not like the weird, like, lizard frog eyes for her facial features. Assassin's Creed is a good idea in paper, but you can, like, get away with generic people in historical settings, but name people like Da Vinci who actually don't fit at all. I agree. I wouldn't be bothered by Assassin's Creed if they weren't having, like, real historical figures in the games. I'm pretty sure you meet, like, Benjamin Franklin, who was the guy who invented electricity. in American culture. For those of you who don't know, or I'm not sure that's really a fair thing to say. I don't know if he like actually invents electricity, or if that's just like, I don't know, American propaganda that we teach ourselves to make America think we're best country, rah. But like, are we gonna get a fucking Benjamin Franklin card, bro? Like, what? Is that okay? I hope to God not. It seems they're going more far back in the history. Because I know the games cover like all kinds of different timelines, but still, it's like, just why are we putting real historical figures, even if they are like historically fictional depictions of them, on Magic cards? I'm not a fan of that, and I hope we end the line here and don't start crossing into more recent history. Now, I do not want a fucking Joseph Stalin card, bro. I don't want that.
Look after it. It will feed you forever.
But in what is potentially the biggest hear me out moment of my career, I think that Universes Beyond actually contains some amazing elements.
Yeah.
I'm not just saying it produces a lot of money. That's undeniable, but also isn't the point. Not
Even then, I'm not really sure Universe Beyond's gonna make that much money, because I really can't see any Universe Beyond set performing anywhere near as well as Lord of the Rings did. But we'll have to wait and see.
all things that are profitable are good. Landlordism, Starbucks coffee, the Modern Warfare series, etc. And not all good things are, or even should be, profitable. Healthcare, most art throughout history, and my habit of sleeping with the parents of everybody who leaves rude comments under my videos.
Oh, and thanks again for the great night, Madeline. Tell your son to stop being a transphobe and I'll call you back.
But even putting money aside, Universes Beyond does good for the game, both from a player base angle and also a design perspective. To begin with the former, one of the biggest social positives that arises from Universes Beyond is that it brings people into the game who otherwise wouldn't have thought twice about it.
Bro, oh my fucking god. Dude, I had this exact discussion with someone who is no longer in my life. Thank God. Because they legit were like, they kept causing problems between my play group, between takes. And I'm like trying to tell him, like, dude, Universe Beyond, hate it or like it, at the very least, you can be happy that Universe Beyond brings in new players. And this person decided to just, like, for some reason, vehemently, if I hope I'm wording used correct. I'm hoping I'm using that word correctly. Just like fight back against me as if like not a single person has gotten into Magic because of Universe Beyond. They have, and that's like one of the best parts about it. Period. You want to sit here and try and tell me that not a single Fallout player got into Magic because of the Fallout decks? Are you on God, bro? Are you on 10 out of 10 Gaiet? Are you on fucking
beginning to lose track?
Crack, cocaine, heroin?
Who have only managed to talk to about Magic because their favorite show is part of it now.
Yes.
I've spent many an hour showing people their favorite Doctor Who companion on my phone, explaining what their rules mean and watching them light up with intrigue and questions about both that specific product but also the game as a whole. I have a friend who plays at my LGS who is there because she loved the art of Galadriel, and call me an anarcho-tanko pinko-hearted shitlib, but I love my friends, and getting to play a game that I love with them is thrilling and good.
Yep.
It also serves a reverse function as well. I'm the kind of awful societal parasite that has recognized and consumed most of the outside IPs that have been part of Universes Beyond.
I haven't.
But I enjoyed exploring the snippets of text lifted from Tolkien's original work, which I have never read, that made their way onto the Lord of the Rings cards. And I know many other people whose first experience with Warhammer 40,000 was through these commander decks. Admittedly, it was also very funny when Magic players looked at Severina Rain and were shocked by her plainly fascistic attire. It is a truly curious feeling watching someone visibly recoil as you explain that behind these fun miniatures, which I like to roll dice to move, there lies the Imperium of Man's arcane and xenophobic eugenics. But it also gives me a great opportunity to talk with them about the amazing creative writing of that world, and namely the orcs. How all of their technology runs off of the power of manifestation. And no, not magic manifestation, the secret manifestation. Their
What is the secret? What is that?
Solely functions because they believe that they will. How originally they were based off of British football hooligans, and how it's a popular myth that their leader's name, Gazgul Mag Uruk Thraka, is based on Margaret Thatcher.
What?
Andy Chambers, one of 40k's original authors and games designers, has since revealed that the similarity is just a happy accident that grew out of live role-playing. To quote, "No Maggie here. We were doing our best to forget about the Wicked Witch," thus satisfying the hearts and minds of both trivia pedants and leftists the world over. Also, no, I will never make a video about 40k. It is one of the few joys in my life I have yet to monetize, and when I die, there will be a sliver of my soul unsullied in the name of commodification. Universes Beyond is also a fascinating treasure trove for ludo-narrative analysis. Magic's story is multifaceted, convoluted, and only selectively good. As I talked about,
I was gonna say, like, he's not gonna mention how bad it is nowadays, and I'm gonna chime in and be like, it's actually not that good nowadays. But no, he said it. He said it. Good for you. Thank you. Like, the last story I read from Magic was, I think, Hour of Devastation, and that was it. I didn't read War of the Spark, despite being a huge Bolus fanboy. I didn't read War of the Spark. I didn't read March of the Machine, even though I've heard it's terrible nowadays. But yeah.
In my short little Tarkir video, Ugin and Bolus's mirroring of each other in their Planeswalker mechanics was an appropriate and satisfying gameplay decision because of their significance and relation to each other in the story of the game. If you don't pay attention to the story, however, these subtleties will be lost, and Magic's story has of late held an unfortunate reputation of not being worth your attention. This is being rectified, slowly and often in spite of the narrative direction itself, but until confidence is properly restored in the story, most people will only know about key details if they're conveyed on a cardboard game piece.
Yep.
Like how Niv Mizzet is planning on turning Ravnica into a new multiversal hub through manipulating omen paths. Honestly, how many of you watching knew that?
No.
Conversely,
No.
because most of the texts WotC is plumbing
I did not know that.
beyond are mainstream, at least in dork circles, the characters and stories are recognizable, if not known, beat for beat. As a result, it's easier to appreciate ludonarrative cohesion, or at least a translation of gameplay mechanics from one medium to the other. As a 40k fan, it's fascinating seeing how Lucius the Eternal's iconic Armor of Shrieking Souls, a chaos artifact that dooms whoever slays Lucius in battle to slowly transform into him, is translated onto his card, which makes a creature bring him back when it dies. Or how, of course, the Sisters of Battle cards would be printed with the Miracle mechanic to reflect their own Miracle dice in-game. Or how Trazen the Infinite's Necrotic Ooze-esque ability mirrors the command he holds over his unending galleries of suspended artifacts and aliens.
Okay. I would like to retract my statement earlier about how Universe Beyond is not being made with passion in mind. He just listed 3 things that were all callbacks to the actual game I had no idea about. So there are at least some designers on the team trying to make sure they capture characters properly from IPs. You got me. You got me. Good on y'all. Good on you, design teams on Universe Beyond sets. You're doing a good job. I retract my statement about y'all not being passionate about the IPs in question. I apologize.
His Death Touch ability, representing how even the largest Titan can be put into the graveyard by him, i.e. added to his collection, fills me with glee. Jesus, The Infinite and the Divine is just such a good book. I know that's like an entry-level 40k story, but God, did it ever live up to the hype. Oh, fuck it. Okay, so spoilers. Orokin the Diviner is a chronomancer, right? And he's
Got it.
always had beef with Trazen because he thinks the latter forced him into the process of Necron biotransference. So, Rowan, I am in the middle of filming.
You promised you wouldn't make any 40k videos. You promised.
How
That's
did
true.
you know I said that? Is that a gun? There is a long tradition of Magic players producing custom cards simulating their favorite media texts.
Yep.
Type Darth Vader MTG into Google Images and you'll be crushed under an avalanche of players' homemade submissions. Some, like Turn 2 Sol Ring's post to r/custom magic, shows Anakin transforming into Vader upon his death. The narrative throughline of Skywalker's aggressiveness in both forms is shown through how both sides of this card must attack each turn.
Bro, why is Darth Vader only a 3/3? That is not correct. That is not correct. Darth Vader should not be a 3/3.
But the combat style
A 4/4 at least, bro.
Anakin is reckless but deft, having haste and vigilance. Vader is absolutely terrifying, difficult to beat in one-on-one combat, and an unstoppable force, having menace, first strike, and trample.
He's a 3/3. He's a 3/3.
Others, like Nick Madaus 64's submission to MTG Nexus, focuses on key story beats from A New Hope. Vader is still terrifying, having menace, but here goads a creature when he enters the battlefield, a reference to the immediate nemesis status he attains in the eyes of Luke Skywalker. And for 3 mana, you can tap him to give a creature -2/-2, a gameplay rendition of his famous Force Choke.
9
So
mana, bro.
It is cool and interesting, no matter your perspective on the product range itself, to see what professional games designers can do in this same field with custom art, new mechanics, or fitting reprints. On that topic, Universes Beyond is one of my favourite places to see Magic cards reprinted with new narrative contexts, something that I generally love to see regardless of the product line. Heroes Downfall, once a chase rare and now a decent draft uncommon, indeed how times change, was first printed in Theros, with art depicting an Akroan champion being bested by a Minotaur of Mogis.
Yep.
In everybody's favourite set, Crimson Vow, the card saw a reprint depicting the moment that Odric, a hero of the Church of Avacyn, was transformed into a vampire. The meaning of a hero's downfall expertly tweaked from a literal to more metaphorical demise. In regards to Universes Beyond, Martial Coup is a card that has never made a huge amount of sense to me. A coup
Card's
means
cool.
the overthrowing of a governmental power by
Alara best set. Alara best block, just saying.
military force, and often, but not always, in contradiction to the will of the masses, aka the US-backed coup in Chile, or the US-organized coup in Iran, or the US-backed coup in Argentina, or the US-backed coup in Haiti, or the US-backed coup in... Yet, the art and flavour of martial coup has little to do with the army turning on power structures, but rather a people unifying to fight an invading threat. This has always deeply bothered me in a way that I assume is normal. And so when I saw that Martial Coup had been reprinted in the Fallout Commander decks, with art depicting the conclusion of the New Vegas questline Still in the Dark, in which you can lead Head Paladin Hardin to, indeed, stage a martial coup against the leadership of Elder McNamara, the art and mechanics suddenly connected with the name. Martial Coup
Got me
at
again.
last
Got me
depicted
again.
a martial coup. Both the card and I finally felt complete. Again, in a way that I assume is normal. Just as a bit of fun, here are some of the other brilliantly thematic reprints that I love from Universes Beyond. Rancor, depicting the violent grannies who attack you in Freeside whilst playing with the Wild Wasteland quirk in Fallout New Vegas.
The what?
Farewell, featuring my distant familial relation David Tennant, complete with gut-wrenching flavour text. Shiny Impetus, depicting goaded and fleeing with the One Ring. A Lehman Russ retrofitted into a tractor on an Imperial Agri-World in Swords to Plowshares. A Tzeentch flavoured Chaos Warp, a Gene Stealer's Voxcaster as a Herald's Horn, a Necron-themed Desert of the Glorified, Vault of Whispers, and Catan Shard as their caged son. This Panharmonicon Harmonica. Some cards were seemingly made to retain relevance across multiple worlds of reference. Like, sorry, Whoever was the worker to notice that Pure Steel Paladin was a slam dunk fit for a Fallout tie-in, both in name and ability,
That's true.
absolutely crushed the assignment.
Yep.
Universes Beyond has also generated
I know that one.
universes within. Canon replications of these outside IP cards within the scope of Magic's own world. Did you enjoy the mechanics of Chun-Li Countless Kicks, but didn't want to be the person bringing a tie-in deck to your Commander game night? Well, Zethi, Arcane Blade Master, has got you covered, trading a more in-keeping Magic aesthetic for an admittedly less flavorful multi-kicker. It's fascinating to see authenticity played out like this. Zethi appears to be the original Magic card in comparison to the presumed fan-made Chun-Li version, but the reality is inverted. Indeed, before these official universes within versions, proxy artists like Force of Wilco were producing canon renditions of these external IP cards, such as...
I will say, I actually was very surprised that, like, Wizards hasn't done more universes within cards. Like, it just seems like a good way to keep making extra money where possible. Like, I imagine that there totally are players who refuse to buy Lord of the Rings cards because they're Lord of the Rings. Or I guess a better example probably is going to be, like, Fallout, right? There's gonna be people who refuse to buy Fallout decks because they're you know, Universe Beyond, and maybe they just hate Fallout, whatever. I'm surprised they haven't done, like, in-universe renditions of more of Universe Beyond products. But then again, maybe that just puts... Maybe that just puts too much on their plate in regards to, like, having to produce product.
Algernon and Linden Kenrith as a proxy for Rick, Steadfast Leader. There's something quite beautiful about the unending creativity of Magic players. First, taking Magic mechanics to ape their favorite characters and texts, then retrofitting these Universes Beyond cards into fitting and appropriate slots in Magic's canon. In both cases, feeling naturally less polished, but also having far more heart. Universes Beyond is also, surprisingly, the home of most of Magic's more interesting current design. It's strange that the most aesthetically derivative product in Magic's history is producing some of its most innovative cards and mechanics, but I'll never be saddened by experimentation, and upon examination, it becomes more clear why this has lately been the case with Universes Beyond more than canon Magic.
Radiation. He's gonna talk about radiation, rad counters from Fallout decks, because that was a really cool mechanic and really good.
Rad counters...
Knew it! Fuck yeah! God, I'm so smart. God, I am so smart. God, I am so smart. I am so good at Magic. I am so good at Magic, bro.
Fallout cards such as the
I fucking knew it.
Give you rad counters, which cause you to mill cards at the start of your main phase for each rad counter on you, losing life and counters for each non-land card milled this way. This
God, I'm so smart, dude. I'm so smart. I'm so smart.
Real-world radiation, whose half-life causes it to dissipate over time, but which still addles your body and mind as you suffer from it, as well as the gamified version of radiation found in the Fallout series, which lowers your stats and health the more irradiated you become. I struggle to think of what the rad counter mechanic could have represented other than radiation, which would have clicked nearly as well as this.
I mean, we could just go to a nuclear plant plane, right? Just go to, like, just make a plan about, like, how nuclear energy is, like, bad and how it, like, destroys everything around it if it's not taken care of, and then you just have nuclear Fallout plane.
Would we have gotten this interesting take on Mill had we not visited America circa 2026?
I think so. I think we totally could have, honestly. I don't think nuclear power is really that crazy of an aesthetic in Magic, to be honest. I mean, there's the Power Stone and Weak Stone in Brothers War, right? The just, like, really energy efficient rocks. I don't think nuclear power would be that far-fetched in Magic setting, to be honest. Just, again, like I said, just go to a nuclear power plant plane where nuclear power is a big thing there.
It's not just whole mechanics, but also individual cards like River Song. Her entire mechanical identity is about messing with the basic direction of Magic gameplay, namely where you draw cards from and if you should search your library. This mirrors her existence as a time-traveling anomaly in the world of Doctor Who. Only several seasons of her character being developed, the wife of the Doctor doomed to meet her one-day spouse in reverse, could have made these mechanics make sense. My
That's
inner
fair.
cynic
I'll give him
also
that one.
feels like if I were a worker made to produce IP tie-ins for Magic the Gathering as opposed to original world building, I would at least demand to supplement the stifling of my creativity by being...
Does he have the exact same lights I do? Hang on. Are those my lights? No, they're not. They are not. Different brand. Different brand.
allowed to cut loose in the gameplay mechanics department. You know, if you're gonna force me to produce Peter Jackson's King Kong, the official game of the movie, you better believe I'm gonna find a way to shoehorn in gorgeous graphics, the entire original cast as voice actors, and innovative enemy pathing AI to appease my inner artist. I've been watching a lot of Noodle lately.
That's fair.
Also, what the fuck was I talking about? I compare these complicated mechanics, which make so much sense on developed characters or more metaversal concepts, with the ostensibly straightforward mechanics on side characters from recent in-universe Magic expansions, and find myself wanting. Yarus, Roar of the Old Gods, for example, benefits your face-down creatures for seemingly no narrative reason. His character is all about summoning great and terrible avatars of nature to raise the city of Ravnica to the ground, so why his card is designed to benefit your film noir-style disguise creatures is baffling.
Yeah.
It should also be noted that whilst many people have been brought into the game space through Universes Beyond and have been encouraged to engage with old media they may well have missed for one reason or another growing up, the product has turned a great number of people off of Magic. Taking a principled position of voting with one's wallet and not buying external IP tie-in products, if not quitting the game entirely. Whilst everyone...
I actually have a friend who has quit Magic entirely because of Universe Beyond. Like I literally do. One of my friends quit Magic because they were sick of what Universe Beyond was doing to the game in terms of like design space, and I don't blame him, honestly. Like that's his choice. I don't blame him for it. Me and him still talk. It's not like where we like just got out of each other's lives when we quit Magic, and I didn't convince him to stay. I mean it's their decision, and I agree that like that is a serious downside. I mean, it makes me question, you know, like between the product pulling in players and the product making players leave because they don't want to support this. How much net gain is there in terms of players joining Magic? Right, that's the question I have for Universe Beyond as a whole.
Reasoning on this issue will be unique. The polarization is quite stark. It also echoes Italian philosopher Paolo Verno's sentiment that the most brazen cynicism is accompanied by the most unrestrained sentimentalism. One could extend this analysis to a comparison of how the sentimentality of Universes Beyond provokes cynicism in the game's player base, or, indeed, how sentimentality is cynically utilized in Universes Beyond for no other reason than to generate reliable capital bumps for wizards.
I'm trying to figure out what this TV thing is. I got no idea what it's about.
This, unfortunately, leads us now on to discussing how the rest of Magic suffers in the shadow of this NutraBullet blend of modern entertainment.
Here we go.
Outlaws.
Here we go. Here we go. This is what I want to see. I want to see how Universe Beyond starting to affect the actual in-universe sets. I want to see this.
Of Thunder Junction is a doubly empty world. Firstly, as a realm that exists solely to pit quote-unquote iconic villainous Magic characters against each other on a Super Smash Bros. Backdrop of the Wild West. Malcolm, a siren pirate from Ixalan, cavorts alongside Selvala, an elvish diplomat from Fiora, and Oko, a trickster fae from Archive of Our Own. They wear cowboy hats and strut in spurs from sheriff offices to saloons, gunning down bandit town outlaws and trained car security alike, depending on what the replayed story beat requires. No narrative matters here. None of these background characters mean anything, they exist solely to accent. Kervek's millennia-spanning hunger for planar domination and subsequent imprisoning in magical amber is transformed into a short beat of wink and nudge gags during a jailbreak sequence. In one particularly telling moment in the story of this set, Kellen encounters Ashiok in a train car, both characters being part of Oko's gang of outlaws. When he reacts negatively to the Nightmare Weaver, the pair's previous interaction being a dire fight, Oko quickly disarms the situation, saying, "Easy, kid. Whatever history you two share doesn't have a place here." A sentiment that could easily be extended to every colliding aspect of this set. In this regard, Thunder Junction isn't so much a pastiche of westerns, but more a pastiche of Westworld. Both the image of the ultimate theme park from that show, and indeed from Unfinity, whose cards like Gallery of Legends jokingly presented disconnected magic characters as automata lined up together for convenient amusement, is here played in earnest. Where once War of the Spark excited us with the prospect of planeswalkers meeting for the first time, and then March of the Machine disappointed us with a multiverse that failed to collide as we had hoped for, Thunder Junction recycles those feelings in a jarring and hollow way.
I agree. This is like Thunder Junction really did kind of feel like it just reduced, like, I think by making it so that, you know, any character from any plane can interact with each other, it kind of just removes, I think it does sort of remove, I'm not sure how to explain it, to be honest. Like, it's just weird, right? Straight up, it's just weird. It's weird seeing Vraska, Oko, Kervek, Crom, all these interplanar characters on the same set. It's just weird. All these characters like had their own stories, and now it just kind of feels like it's like Spice said. It's just Smash Bros. The set. Here's a random backdrop full of nothing. Go fuck off and do what you want. We're just gonna put you in here and y'all can fuck around and that'll be the set. There's a story here about some vault that they just somehow know about, despite the fact that it's a new plane that no one has inhabited before the Omen Pass existed. But you know, whatever, I guess.
Like our setting, our mechanics too are recycled. The outlaw grouping merely a rebranding of collected creature types akin to Party, but with less complexity and flavor. Yep. Saddle is crew but for creatures, plot is a streamlined foretell. There is nothing new here, but we're made to feel it, whilst the biggest swings of Magic's contemporary experimentation are reserved to plump its new golden goose of external IPs. Whilst mechanical experimentation can be found both in and beyond Magic's multiverse, the game's in-universe canon is where the designers can be brave, push boundaries, question assumptions, and go beyond the notions already explored by established media canon. In Thunder Junction, however, we're given tokens of representation with abject thoughtlessness as to what they mean within this context. Annie Flash is, on a literally skin-deep level, a First Nations woman. An erstwhile outlaw turned lawbringer of Thunder Junction who acts as one of our principal point-of-view characters for the story.
Yep.
But representation comes with responsibility. An uncomfortable responsibility where, in order to properly represent a people, you must encounter the reason why their representation is important, and often why they have been lacking representation in the first place.
I believe Bonnie Paul actually is of this group too, as well. This culture too, I think as well. I could be wrong, but Bonnie Paul definitely seems to have the same kind of like cultural design here as Annie Flash does.
Thunder Junction, in a microcosm of liberal, race-blind, non-conversation politics and fiction, deigns to have its cake and eat it. Thunder Junction is not America, nor even Westworld. First Nations people do not exist here to be shot for sport by settlers or to pose as exotic set dressers.
Hang on. Give me one moment. I'll be right back. Okay, I'm back. Sorry about that. I heard my dog whining, and I was like, he's gonna go outside, but no, he's fine.
Annie Flash is not subjected to bigotry or malice because of who she is. She is respected without thought towards the people she is a part of. The cruel reality of how European settlers annihilated the First Nations, driving many tribes to extinction, eradicating culture and language, and stealing communally stewarded land and transforming it into settler bourgeois agriculture and plantations, facilitated directly and explicitly through the labor of enslaved people, all of which is an ongoing, unatoned process not safely relegated to the past, is of course absent. The cowboy flicks of old, on which Thunder Junction is of course based, sanitized the uncomfortable parts of this reality, whilst acknowledging or even celebrating atrocities and racisms still considered as acceptable in their contemporary cultural hegemony. Increasingly, mass media exists which centers indigenous narratives, either directly challenging settler myths and preconceptions, both past, present, and potential, or telling stories beyond the framework of colonial dispossession and stepping into true escapism. As Jack said in our recent conversation about Tarkia,
anytime you're dealing with like representation in media, there's this kind of tension between like oftentimes reality is difficult, and like sometimes you don't want to see reality represented because you live it.
Of course, however, some settings cannot be disentangled from these realities.
I mean, like, at the same time, like, Magic is a fantasy card game. People use that as an escape. I've seen it take before that, like, people don't want Magic to be, like, a game that tackles real world issues, not because they don't care that it's like woke or whatever the fucking term is nowadays, but that it's more so just like it's an escape for them. They don't want to be reminded of current real world problems that the world is facing right now in their game, which is a take I understand, but at the same time, like, if we're gonna put indigenous peoples and people of different cultures of all different kinds, I mean, they should be represented properly, I think.
The Wild West, the term itself dripping with implication, is one of these.
I used the word indigenous, right? I did not just be like extremely racist and I had no idea. Yeah, okay. Oh.
Yet its siren's call compels continued exploration, and corporate notes that pop guns still sell well in stores. Magic is a game, after all. The world builders thus aimed to create a world in which we can play without discourse, where cowboys exist purely as their marketable sign, freed from history. Because in their West, genocide is impossible. Thunder Junction is an empty world beyond just feeling hollow.
Yeah.
In the lore as written, the plane
There's no one there.
Inhabited by people until the arrival of settlers through omen paths. In order to avoid the touchy subject of whose blood the nation which lionized cowboys is built on, and thus whose land these settler representations are settling, the foundational lie of colonization, terra null, a land without people, is replicated. This undercuts the necessarily racialized identity of Annie Flash. She is a First Nations woman, but
that's true.
From the First Nations of where? She is a settler from another realm, as are all of the characters in this world.
Which we might not even see, because that way it's convenient for Wizards. They don't gotta give Annie Flash any more background, because world's empty. Annie Flash will exist for one set and then never again, because that's convenient for them.
Officially, she is Atin, a nomadic people based on the Navajo who quote-unquote found their way to Thunder Junction. Whilst her picture dominates the screen at MagicCon Chicago, it is said that, quote, everyone is a newcomer to this plane, including Annie Flash. It seems the only way Wizards could produce a Western where Native Americans are present, one saccharine and palatable to settler consumption, is to erase the native aspect of said Native American identity. This is not to say there are no attempts to bring real-life issues faced by First Nations people into the story, but they are frustrated from the jump by the world they must be set in. Annie Flash's name, her true Atin name, is Hesea. Her nephew Tommy calls her this in the closing lines of a side story as he decides to leave her for the implied true home of their people. Many millions of people, First Nations people absolutely included, are given or choose to use anglicised names in place of their true names for ease of assimilation with the dominant structure of white supremacy. One of the thousands of subtle but pervasive ways that the identities of colonised and othered people are repressed by cultural hegemony. However, when the narrative refuses to acknowledge the reality of American colonization, this moment is rendered airless. Why would Hesea and presumably the other Atin like Tommy and Wiley Duke feel compelled to change their names when other characters in this same melting pot setting don't?
Yeah, like, I think it also kind of speaks to a degree of just like what happens when you don't really give any characters enough background, right? Like, sure, you put Satoru and Viltip and all these crazy characters on one plane, right? But at the end of the day, no one was looking at like Satoru and going, oh man, I love Satoru, he's so cool. It was only the Planeswalkers, and we only got like 3 in the set. It was just Jace, Vraska, and Vraska too, but because she was a creature. It was Jace, Vraska, Oko, and is that it? That was the 4th one. Nope, guess not. But like, no one is special when everyone is special, right? Which I think just hurts Annie Flash even more here. That, and like, if you don't give a character background, special moments like this aren't gonna hit hard at all, right? Like, why would I care about Wily Duke or Satoru or any character on Thunder Junction when there's 35 other legends who are trying to hog spotlight, right?
Why would it be such an emotional shock, provoking tears from Hesea, if there is not some element of sanctity to this act? Some need, auto-exploitative or not, to obfuscate her true identity. We, as modern readers, understand the meaning of this quiet and radical act, but only within the context of what we know these people are supposed to represent. Their actual positions in this reality, however, do not back this up, as the rest of the world building is fighting tooth and nail to deny and brush away the very impetus behind this heartbreaking story beat. H.E. Edgman, themselves an absolutely based First Nations person, writes beautifully here. The guilt with which Hesea tends to her nephew's permanent wounds she holds herself responsible for, is palpable, made all the more tragic with Tommy's limited reciprocation and eventual exit from her home and care. I just wish that this writing and that moment could have been given a less tepid and whitewashed foundation to have sprung from. Strangely, even alongside the depoliticized and alienized allegories for First Nations people here, there are natives to Thunder Junction. Flora and fauna, including the questionably sapient cactus folk. Long are the days gone where fantasy species carried interesting and unique names. Now just take the most obvious inspirational origin and staple folk or born or kin on the end and call it a day. They have their own township of Hardbristle and are more than happy to adapt.
I'm sorry, say that again?
And fauna, including the questionably sapient cactus folk. Long she holds herself responsible for is palpable, made all the more tragic with Tommy's limited reciprocation and eventual exit from her home and care. I just wish that this writing and that moment could have been given a less tepid and whitewashed foundation to have sprung from. Strangely, even alongside the depoliticized and alienized allegories for First Nations people here, there are natives to Thunder Junction. Flora and fauna, including the questionably sapient cactus folk. Long are the days gone where fantasy species carried interesting and unique names. Now just take the most obvious inspirational origin and staple folk or born or kin on the end and call it a day. They have their own township of
I guess that's kind of fair. I kind of understand what he's saying. Like, I guess for world building's sake, he kind of wants them to actually have their own names. I guess that's fair, but at the same time, it's like, never mind. Yeah, I agree with him. If they actually had their own names and they weren't just cactus folk, right? It would help a little bit with the flavor of the set as a whole, right? I can't deny that. I can't deny that.
Hard bristle, and are more than happy to adapt to and aid with the expansion of trade infrastructure and settler society on their unspoiled world. The question of if these newcomers should be taking this land and making it their own is avoided, as the only beings who could actually claim indigeneity are inhuman, a fun and unconscious replication of the settler dehumanization of colonized people, and never given a chance to articulate a line of dialogue in the entire narrative, let alone a demand for sovereignty, if they are even designed to understand or care for the concept. It is almost comedic to be playing the 1626 Manhattan Purchase in an era of cultural consultancy by way of Baby Yoda. On the topic of justification,
it's the baby stand from JoJo.
It should also be noted that the narrative essentially states that the presence of
there you are. So gnat flying around, dude. I keep missing him. Hey, it's really getting my nerves down. It keeps flying from my PC. I'm trying to watch this very important video. It's an hour, 2 hours long.
Not only civilization to this plane, but the actually basic material basis for one as well. Quoting the flavor of Quick Draw, the opening of the Omen Paths awoke the wild magic of Thunder Junction. Settlers dubbed it Thunder and put it to use in everything from farming tools to deadly weapons. It is one thing to present settlers bringing technology and structures that had yet to be developed by a colonized indigenous population to their world.
Right.
But to say that the land was metaphysically incapable of allowing for such projects until settlers arrived and literally awoke its true potential is beyond the pale. It's not that oil and coal existed on Turtle Island, just not industrially exploited by its native people. It's that coal and oil were waiting until the right people turned up on its shores before it even popped into being. Even in ardently avoiding the topic of colonization, settler exceptionalism can simply not help but shine through.
Wow.
Holy cow.
Yeah.
Mark Fisher, writing
I did not think about that at all.
Wrote that postmodern fascism is a disavowed fascism, just as homophobia survives as disavowed homophobia. The strategy is to refuse the identification whilst pursuing the political program. To that end, Thunder Junction, indeed the entire American project, survives as disavowed settler colonialism.
Damn it, dude.
We, of course,
y'all gonna hear me smack in the air with my hands now, trying to kill this gnat every now and then. Now, I'm sorry. Hopefully, I get him soon.
Explore that beastly practice. But the land we took is ours now, and the people who took it are heroes with 6-shooters. According to sources I spoke to who were aware of the development of Thunder Junction, originally the world was pitched as a dystopia, a post-apocalyptic land ripped apart by portals which grew as a result of aether-infused ecological devastation, now further exploited by, essentially, arcane oil barons, settling the land and plundering resources without care for the sustained impact it will have, all with cowboy hats on.
That legit sounds way cooler. That's just like the fucking nuclear set I proposed, where it's like hey, maybe take a look at like what happens when you exploit the world too much and see what fucking happens with like fracking and nuclear energy and shit like that. That just sounds way cooler. Why didn't they do that? Oh, I know why. Because it's easier for them. It's easier. They don't gotta side with anything politically.
A statement on the environmental impact of, amongst other events, the American settler gold rush, and quite the contrast to the unspoilt world on which Thunder Junction now rests. I would highly recommend reading Amitav Ghosh's The Nutmeg's Curse for further understanding on the intrinsic link between colonization and ecological harm. Additionally, and again, according to my sources, historically, those attempting to realize a Wild West setting in Magic have allegedly been explicitly dissuaded from discussing or featuring the topic of colonization in the game world during development.
I don't doubt it at all.
Reasons for this are obvious, financially motivated, cowardly, and chauvinistic, considering Magic's willingness to portray colonization as it pertains the founding of other countries. For the second video in a row now, Iberian colonial vampire. Both versions of Thunder Junction avoid the discourse of colonization in their own ways. In the original pitch, developed before Multiversal Omen Paths, the people who inhabit the land are building new civilizations, but out of the ruins of their own ancestral societies. They are exploited by individual planeswalkers, but not being cleansed from or forcibly assimilated into new settler structures. In the latter official release, settlements and colonies exist, set up by a multitude of alien people, but just so happen to be claiming truly uninhabited land. Or at least land inhabited by beings more players are comfortably able to dismiss the place-based needs and rights of. Interestingly, this idea of a ruined past...
I apologize. Real quick, I just want to say, I apologize if I seem like I don't really have any commentary of this part of the video. I really, like, just don't know what to say about, like, the issue that Spice is tackling here. I agree with him. I think he is correct to make these points. I really just don't know what comments to add, because I'm really just not well informed regarding these issues at all. So, please don't take my silence as, like, me, like, not caring or whatever. I just don't really know what to add regarding his commentary here, because I'm not well informed about the points he's discussing right now.
Civilization has persisted into this new version, with the central treasure-filled MacGuffin of the Vault, but without the people whose ancestors built it. Indeed, the central mystery of what the Vault is answered in the climax of the narrative when Ashiok, revealed to be Jace in disguise, kidnaps the sole living inhabitant of the Vault, Baby Yoda II.
Yep.
We have never seen
Fuck
this
loot.
made for
Fuck
Squishmallow
loot.
and Teemo skin before, and it can only be found at Mythic Rarity on the Vault bonus sheet, which was printed alongside Outlaws in one of 3 collectible variants scattered throughout the different kinds of booster packs that you can open for this set. The forthcomingness to name this new character Loot, the key to everything, renders the card impossible to satirize.
Hang on, there's a fly. There's a fly, hang on. I missed him. I missed him. I missed him. Oh no. Oh no, what have I done? Don't be broken, please. We good? We good? We still work? Yeah. We still work. Thank you, please. We're fine. I missed him, y'all. I'm sorry.
I simply mutter, "What are we even doing here, man?" each time I see it, and Jenga another protein bar into my bug-out bag. The child's removal from the vault then triggers the structure to ascend into the stars, revealing itself to be a multi-planar ship of sorts designed by, I think, the Fomori. What came before in Thunder Junction, first being reduced to an archaeological...
Well, now I'm learning all kinds of things today. I know this happened at all.
Curiosity, something that'd be wasted on the unexploitative natives, and is then transformed into a spacecraft from an advanced civilization. Of course, the idea
Now
that
it's aliens.
complex and great projects discovered by settlers must secretly be the doing of aliens is a consistent trope of colonial narratives.
Holy
Both
shit, dude.
are uncritical
Oh my
simulacra of the
God.
justifications invented by Europeans to occupy and terramorph uncivilized land.
Bro, I never thought of it like that. Oh my God.
I think back to what Jack said in our Tarkir video, how the people of the colonized societies of Tarkir have lately only been used as action figures in an alien invasion plot. It saddens me that such an analysis has been wrought prophetic, but for an entire setting this time, and without even the good graces of presenting something worth ruining beforehand.
Our job is to plant seeds.
All points I agree with.
To enjoy the fruit.
Chobani?
Another one of
Wait.
the worries
Wait,
espoused
is that just a Chobani ad? Are we kidding? Or is that all it is? Never mind.
Jack and myself towards the end of our Tarkir video was that not only did the Tarkir we wanted to return to no longer exist in the lore, but also couldn't be done justice within Magic's modern design. The single set structure and often suffocating presence of universes beyond had killed that dream. To that end, the pace and style of contemporary Magic has also diminished the chance of other brilliant experiments seeing the light of day. Another future site, for example, couldn't be made today.
Yeah.
The 2007
It
set
sucks too.
depicting the finale of
It's a cool
Dominaria's
set.
slow decay into dust and salt had two kinds of cards, normal and future. The former almost exclusively depicted a dead world. Deserts roiling under empty skies, anemic dragons smouldering in the air, and memorials to heroes of dead ages. These
Sword of
cards
Vengeance.
featured a myriad of mechanics from Magic's past. Kicker, Shadow, Vanishing, Morph, Bloodthirst and Flanking, Hellbent and Madness, Convoke and Buyback, Cycling and Flashback, and even more. Echoes of
Future Sight, also known as Modern Horizon Zero. Modern Horizon Zero, before Power Creep was a thing that we purposely built towards and designed cards for.
the game that had came before and presented in an appropriately withered world. There were a number of new mechanics, of course. Flash was finally keyworded, Suspend played with the timing and different zones of the game in a way that had only been experimented with once before in Magic's history, and Split Second referenced the often purposefully unacknowledged stack of the game, a place very much under the hood of Magic's machine where immersion goes to die via fan belt accident. Split Second modified the rules of the stack as a zone in a way that has never been done before or since, and, as we shall see, many cards in this block played with the frame of the game in ways that seem tame from today's perspective, but which were unprecedented at the time.
I just want to say, I really hope they bring back these frames as someday. I actually really like these things a lot. I know you can't put, like, Progenitus and ultimatums on this mana cost because you only have 6 symbols to work with, but I really hope someday that they bring them back because I do think that these frames do look really cool, especially in today's world where it's like we get a new fancy frame every set. It seems absurd to me that we haven't gotten some kind of callback to these frames because it just seems really, really obvious.
These new mechanics, one which sped up time, one which slowed it down, and one which bypassed it altogether, were phenomenal. These innovations, coupled with a messy cavalcade of past mechanics, made the message of this block clear. The old is dying, said most of these cards, whilst others announced, and the new is being born. Future Sight's future cards were experimental spectacles, the finale of 3 acts spanning the rest of the block. These were special and limited cards printed in a curved frame, delightfully sentimented in what cutting edge looked like back in the mid-2000s, with brand new mechanics, worlds, and aesthetics. Time Spiral, the first
Don't worry,
block, had
there they
printed
are.
time-shifted special cards, old border and old art reprints of a select few cards from Magic's past, demonstrating the warping of time that was occurring in the set's story. Planar Chaos printed plane-shifted cards, functional reprints of more past Magic cards but shifted into new colours. A pastiche product, simultaneously looking backward and readjusting old cards into new design sensibilities, making Prodigal Sorcerer a more appropriate red card, Prodigal Pyromancer, but also questioning these contemporary boundaries, asking if White's monopoly on Serra Angel-style creatures couldn't be shared with Blue, and if taxing counter magic couldn't find a home in white.
God, dude, fucking Future Sight was so cool, dude. Future Sight was such a cool set, man. God, I never got to experience it myself because I must have been like, what, 7 at a time. What year did Future Sight release? Hang on, I actually want to see. Future Sight release. 2007, actually. Wow, holy crap! I got it. I was spot on. May 4th, 2007. I would have been like, I would have been 1 year old. No, God no. 4. I've been 4 years old. God, dude. Like it was such a cool set, dude. Between the frames and the color shifting stuff and like just everything about it, it's such a cool set, man. Modern Horizon sets are the closest thing we have nowadays to Future Sight again, but just without the look to the future vibe. Even though they do kind of do that by shifting mechanics lock to certain colors into other colors. Like Emerge was strictly Sultai in Eldritch Moon, but we got Emerge on a red card in Modern Horizons 3 with Harrogast. It's a really cool set. I hope we get more of this. And I think looking into the future and looking in the past is like just a really cool idea that's unexplored. I'd love for it to happen again.
Future Sight took the logical next step and blew the casket off of What If, contrasting a tired world and recycled old mechanics with popping artwork and bold new ideas. Tarmogoyf referenced the as-yet non-existent Planeswalker subtype, as Steamflogger Boss did with Contraptions.
Yep.
Yixlid Jailer looked forward into a new and still unexplored Cenobite Perma Hell world, with a graveyard hate mechanic that seemed like it was designed to combat a threat that had yet to materialize. Imperial Mask told casters to give your teammates a copy of it, lacking any explanation of who a teammate could be or what structure of play you could legally acquire one in. There were new mechanics: Poisonous, Fate Seal, Delve,
Yes.
Absorb, Aura Swap, Fortify, Grave...
One moment. Mr. Jojo! Mr. Jojo! My dog's coming. Hang on. Here he comes. Slowly but surely. They're downstairs, dude. Come on. He's eating one. Hang on. Let me see if I can get him. Jojo! Jojo, come here. He is so... Jojo! Fine. Let him do his thing. He's chill.
Grandeur, all but a handful of whom have seen no reprints, functional or not, in products that followed.
Yep.
But even those that did get expanded
There he is.
upon needed to have satisfying payoffs to their original mystery. Why did it matter that Ghostfire was colorless? What the fuck was a Kithkin, and why did some seem pleasant and lovely, whilst others were painted by Omar Rian? These cards still hold great intrigue.
Kithkin was the original halfling
and new.
in
with
Magic.
excitement rising each time it is announced that they will be reprinted in upcoming sets, like Avon Mind Sensor in Amonkhet or Grinning Ingus in Strixhaven. It unfailingly feels like the future is arriving each time they appear for the first time in a set's world. Some were powerful, remaking formats like Invaders from an advanced century, overwhelming the present day with new technology. Others were, and are, simply perplexing, like reading a book written 200 years from now and failing to understand the parlance that appears to be commonplace in these new times. Magic...
Dude, having a tap in Shamus is so weird. It's stuff like that just made Future Sight such a cool set, man. Like, it's just... They could experiment, do weird things that made no sense, and that was cool. Like, just, again, representing teammates with Imperial Mask when, like, no format existed that even allowed you to do that, dude. Like that was just so cool. It's such a cool thing. And I know there's a really good chance that we never get one ever again, especially considering the fact that I think to this day there are still cards in Future Sight that haven't ever been reprinted in standard sets. And I think we have to actually meet the future of Future Sight first for it to make sense, right? Like, I don't think Witch's Mist has been reprinted at all. So I imagine until we actually do get every Future Sight card reprinted and put into like the present, we're not making another one just wouldn't make sense. It would only just cause problems, I think.
Could make Future Sight in 2007 because the future still existed. The game was still relatively young, just over a decade old, and was still opening up to structural experiments and new formats. Now, there is nowhere for the future to hide. Future Sight and Modern Horizons are often compared, love letters to Magic's past and highly advanced limited environments to play in. However, Modern Horizons is just the first half of Future Sight. Glances backwards, nods to the past, reimaginings of what's come before, with little to no envisioning of what comes next.
You don't look forward
Every
at all.
quote-unquote new mechanic in Modern Horizons 2 is a riff on an old one. Affinity for tokens, and devour artifacts. Combinations of inherently synergistic keywords like reinforce and scavenge, or plane cycling and eternalize. There's nothing jarring and head-scratching here. No Bloodshot Trainee or Bridge from Below or Norin the Wary or Scrib Ranger. Things that challenged players to work out if these bizarre, obtuse, contradictory pieces of cardstock were secretly busted or just confusingly bad. For many Future Sight cards, players had to wait for them to become good. The same is simply not the case for the oxymoronically named Modern Horizons, where the horizon arrives the instant it is envisioned.
Of
To be
OP
fair
busted
and
bullshit.
balanced and unbiased and sexy, there are a handful of individually innovative cards here. Ones that may form the heart of a new deck once more pieces come together. Garth One Eye conjuring Black Lotus copies is an unbelievable delight. And Void Mirror feels like it's only one asymmetrical possibility storm away from becoming a hardlock combo piece. But in a sea of high-powered remixes and uninteresting draft filler, these can't help but feel lonesome. This, I should stress, is not the fault of lazy or unimaginative games designers. In 2013, there were 5 sets and 1 Commander deck series with a total of 9 new mechanics added into the game. In 2023, there were 7 sets and 7 Commander products with 18 brand new mechanics, double that of a decade ago. Bear in mind as well that new mechanics introduced.
How many products was it? Like how many sets was it in current year?
Commander deck series with a total of 9 new mechanics added into the game.
So 6 sets, 9 mechanics versus.
In 2023, there were 7 sets and 7 Commander products with 18 brand new mechanics.
Fuck, bro. So what's more interesting to me is that like the set number only increased by 1, but the mechanics went to like the mechanic number doubled. That's kind of insane to me, actually. Like, I know he mentioned Commander products, but I don't think they tend to introduce new mechanics in Commander products. Like the only one I can think of lately is Will of the Planeswalkers, which is strictly a plane chase mechanic, which is like, does that even count? Does that even count? I mean, if anything, it goes to show like how Magic designers can make up a lot of stuff if you give them more resources to work with, and just different settings, themes, etc. Right?
Double that of a decade ago. Bear in mind as well that new mechanics introduced in the old 3-block structure would often go on to form the mechanical backbone of at least 2 future sets. There is increasingly less and less space to innovate. There is no time to rest on broken ground, to wring every potential interesting feature from a mechanic before moving on.
And I'd say that's more so due to the fact that like I would say that that's more so a consequence of the abandonment of block structure, right? Because we got like Constellation and in Theros, and then that proceeded to get used in it's Constellation, right? I'm not getting that wrong. Constellation is a mechanic. I think Bestow is the more appropriate one, right? Like we got Bestow cards in Theros, and those got used again in the other 2 block sets. But now that we're right, like you can't. It would be really weird, story and set design wise, in regards like in regards to like the release schedule, if they used disguise on mild inconveniences at Karlov Manor and then proceeded to use disguise again in what was after that? Thorn Junction, right? It'd be weird. It'd be weird for them to use a mechanic in one set and then use the same mechanic in the next set, despite the settings and themes being completely different. So I would think the overabundance of mechanics now is more so due to the fact that Wizards has abandoned the block structure. Again, most likely due to Hasbro, forcing them to try and make more money. And people tended to not buy second and third sets in blocks as much as the first set.
Must always be digging for new treasure. The worlds nodded at as well are either well trodden or devoid of character. The harsh Cenobite terror of Yixalid Jailer's unknown realm lies in stark contrast to the ambiguous non-place of Junk Winder's trash heap. I look at Glimpse of Tomorrow and wonder if I'm supposed to recognize this vista, or if this is a world yet unexplored. No one's coming from the future anymore. The time machines can't keep up. The slow cancellation of the future, as Franco Berardi put it, didn't happen overnight to Magic. There was, and in some ways still is, a game with a future before it. But rapid proliferation of Magic product has forced the arrival of the future into a pressurized nozzle, where once players would see mechanics and ideas teased out over time, we are increasingly given everything we want as rapidly as possible. Where once players seeking to...
I'd say one good example of that is probably cycling in Ikoria. Like, cycling, you got everything you possibly could want in a cycling deck in Ikoria. You got Gabby Nesportin, who made cycling free and gave you bodies in the ground for cycling. There was Zenith Flare, which was this massive payoff for cycling. There were several payoffs for cycling, actually, in Ikoria, because, I don't know, I guess they just really wanted the set to work. So, like, I'd say that's another good point as well, is that, like, we keep getting designs, and to a certain extent, commanders, I'd say, even, that just, like, reek of just, like, not lack of innovation, but more so the lack of the ability to innovate among them, because, like, the commander and the decks just kind of build themselves, right? Like, Gabby Nesportin, it's just, it's a cycling deck. You play cycling cards, play everything with cycling, compared to someone like Lord Windgrace, where it's like, hey, you know, it's these aren't really fair compare. Well, you know, no, they're fine. Compared to Lord Windgrace, where it's like, hey, I care about lands mildly, so you can use me as just a generic value piece, or you can be playing like land shenanigans where you want to bring back lands, you can make your lands into creatures, that sort of thing, right? I would say that the point he made about just everything kind of being spoon-fed you at once really does kind of remove a degree of, like, player satisfaction of making decks to a degree as well nowadays.
To build decks around niche themes would have to make tactical sacrifices or innovate using ostensibly non-synergistic cards due to limited production. New game concepts and support are now splattered onto our proverbial over-buttered toast. Players have been trying to make energy happen in Commander since Kaladesh. Here's 3 new commanders to play with at least 2 in the same colours on their way shortly. Players enjoyed the alternate win con of Revel in Riches. Print treasure cards in every set forevermore, along with clues and food. Enjoying the joke of Fibblefip's many cameos? Well, we've increased them 20-fold and printed him on 3 new cards. Craving reprints? They'll show up in the list and remastered products. The prevalence of remastered products is a great cog in this.
Okay, now I'm confused. Now I'm a little confused. I thought... Let me go back.
No one's coming from the future anymore. The time machines can't.
I thought his point was that he didn't like how there was lack of the need to like. I thought he didn't like how there was lack of the ability to look towards the future because Wizards was giving you everything at once. But then he proceeded to list like mechanics and ideas getting support way down the line.
Keep up. The slow cancellation of the future, as Franco Berardi put it, didn't happen overnight to Magic. There was, and in some ways still is, a game with a future before it. But rapid proliferation of Magic product has forced the arrival of the future into a pressurized nozzle, where once players would see mechanics and ideas teased out over time, we are increasingly given...
Okay, so the example he uses here is Lorwyn to Dragon's Tarkir. So, I want to make sure I'm being fair here. I'm not getting the wrong idea. I just want to make sure I'm being fair to Spice. I don't want to get up in arms if I'm not understanding what his point he's making is. Okay, Lorwyn released in 2007, alright? Dragons of Tarkir released in 2015. So 8 years later, Doran got a new Toughness Matters piece, okay?
Everything we want as rapidly as possible. Where once players seeking to build decks around niche themes would have to make tactical sacrifices or innovate using ostensibly non-synergistic cards due to limited production, new game concepts and support are now splattered onto our proverbial over-buttered toast. Players have been trying to make energy happen in Commander since Kaladesh. Here's 3 new commanders to play.
So, and then his next example is Kaladesh Energy versus Energy and Fallout. Kaladesh released in 2016. Fallout released in 2024, which is 8 years. That's 1 year longer than Kaladesh. Or between Lorwyn and no, it's not. No, it's the same amount of time actually. My bad. So I don't really understand what his complaint is.
With at least 2 in the same colors on their way shortly. Players enjoyed the alternate.
Like, does he not like that mechanics are getting support? Like, if he didn't use the energy example, I would get his point here because, you know, we got treasure and then proceeded to get just this overflow of treasure in every set. I understand this example. I agree with this one. I don't think treasure should have gotten so much material support so fast, but why bring energy into the equation if his complaint is that deck ideas and mechanics get too much support too fast? That's what I'm not understanding.
WinCon of Revel in Riches? Print treasure cards in every set forevermore, along with clues and food. Enjoying the joke of Fibblefip's many cameos? Well, we've increased them 20-fold and printed him on 3 new cards. Craving.
Okay, so again, Totally Lost was in what? Gate Crash? What year did Gate Crash release? Fucking God. The set release, dude. Gate Crash released in 2013. I don't believe we got another card of him until like
forevermore, along with clues and food. Enjoying the joke of Fibblefip's many cameos? Well, we've increased them.
Okay, his earliest one here is I think that's Guild of Ravnica. Of Ravnica release date. Guild was released in 2018, so that's 5 years. Right? Was Gate Crash really in 2013? Was there really only a 5-year difference between Guilds and Gate Crash? Wow. Okay. I thought it was way longer. Wow. Interesting. Is 5 years too short for him? I don't.
20-fold and printed him on 3 new cards.
I don't. I'm
Craving
not.
reprints, they'll show up in the list and remastered products.
What's wrong with that?
The prevalence of remastered products is a great.
Okay. I'm not really understanding what his complaint is here. So Pibbleflip showed up on there was Borber Rig. He shows him in the video. It's yeah, he shows up in Repulsive Mutation right here. He shows up in Bag Check as a little callback. He shows up in Captive Audience right here, and of course he's in Borber Rigmos and Pibbleflip. I don't really understand what the point he's making here is. Does he not want old mechanics to get new cards? I don't think that's what he's trying to say, but that's how it's coming off. If his point is that he wants there to be, like, he says he, like, doesn't want mechanics to get so much so fast, and then uses Doran Siege Tower and Assault Formation from Dragons of Tarkir as his supporting point for that, but then he immediately proceeds to use energy from Kaladesh to Fallout as his next example, which is literally the exact same time frame in terms of span of years, and then uses Fibblethip cameos as his next example, which was a 5 year difference between Totally Lost and Captive Audience. And then he also
20-fold and printed him on 3 new cards. Craving reprints, they'll show up in the list and remastered products.
says is that he also says that reprints are bad. I'm not understanding what his point here is. I'm hoping oh, you mother.
The prevalence
Got his
of
ass.
remastered product.
Fucking got his ass. What you get, bro? I kill a fly. Hell yeah. It was in a rag. It wasn't my hands. It wasn't my hands. Don't worry. I'm not understanding what point Spice is trying to make here. I'm hoping I'm misunderstanding because so far it just seems to kind of be like mute points where he just seems to like contradict himself immediately, or like they're just not related. Why did he bring up reprints after mentioning like mechanics not getting support? Why did he bring up reprints after his main complaint being that some mechanics get support too fast? I'm confused. Let's keep watching. Maybe there's some context here I'm missing. And if there is, I'm gonna look really stupid.
Is a great cog in this futureless malaise, re-exploring the greatest hits from old blocks and worlds like Ravnica with nostalgia goggles on. These are not just soulless cash-ins, but key components in our hauntological now, where the cultural past persists like a ghost, filling the gaps left by the absence of the new. The retro-framed, hallowed fountain is an icon of this, a complex object which satisfies a deep longing to experience an old form again. On a primary level, its existence lets new players play with game objects that they otherwise may lack access to. For those who played with the original cards, on a deeper level, it gratifies a deeper and more properly nostalgic desire to return to an older period and to live its strange old aesthetic artifacts through once again. There is a dual-pronged approach in Magic's aesthetic design right now. New kinds of foils, frame treatment, serializations, and alt art collectibles are pumped into the game in a doomed attempt to recapture the desire to chase scarce and shining artifacts. At the same time, the old border is trotted out with increasing frequency, like an aging heartthrob made to wither under the spotlight in order to bolster love and support for an increasingly estranged franchise. This is as desperate as it is ineffectual.
Why do you pull up Joe Biden and Obama? What? Why do you pull up Joe Biden?
A cloying for nostalgia that both frantically desecrates and pathetically reveres the game's history. Of course, this particular nostalgia is a false one. The retro frame is a signifier of Magic's past, but these cards never originally looked like this. The earliest printing of Ravnican cards was in the modern frame of Mirrodin onwards.
Okay.
It is a simulation of a simulation. The artificial crackle added under a funk LP that has never been pressed to vinyl. Time is flattened and truncated. There is a current frame and the old frame, the singularly existing past and the eternal now. The earliest experiments and awkward growing pains between the two, white borders, washed out mana symbols, whatever the fuck the portal cards whole deal was, etc., are forgotten. The indeterminate past of Magic canonized with a single aesthetic, adaptable based on market desires, neutered of the process of history. Not that every...
Okay. I'm going to listen to what he has to say right here, and then I'm going to pause and say my piece. So far, it really just does sound like reprints bad. That's how it's coming off to me. He seems to be trying to say that like Wizard is trying to like falsify. Wizard is trying to use nostalgia for the sake of just trying to sell packs. But like I don't like he brought up Ravnica Remastered as being like bad because it's trying to monotonize the past. But like at the same time, Ravnica Remastered was great for reprints. Ravnica Remastered was great for lowering the value of like highly desired pieces. So like, I don't really think that's bad. I'm gonna say his piece and I'll pause again.
Reframing of the new in an old border is a shallow nostalgia grab, however.
Okay.
As was pointed out by one of my patrons, there was a series of Secret Lair Planeswalker cards printed in the old border with meandering and complicated rules text. This was both by design and due to necessity. The Planeswalker card is a symbol of modern Magic.
It is.
A key image of the game in ascendant popularity, which warped both the game and the traditional frame around it. Unbroken straight lines became curved, with elements of the character's artwork escaping from the bounds of their portrait, a technique pioneered by the tragically slain silver border sets. An entirely new text box and icons denoting the various loyalty abilities of the Planeswalker had to be invented. As Old Border Dak Faden, one of modern Magic's most simple Planeswalkers, demonstrates, the rules that allow these cards to function could never have worked at this game's inception. The staggeringly difficult to follow 11 lines of rules text, peppered with enough caveats and reminders to make even Chains of Mephistopheles? This shit is so complicated, it makes Chains of Mephistopheles look like a French vanilla in comparison. You have no idea how many takes I did before I just decided to say fuck it and break out the phonetics. Phonetics? Phonetics! Jesus Christ! Old Border Dak Faden is totally bereft of the streamlining we've come to expect from Magic the Gathering.
Look, as someone who like talks fast and stutters a lot, I totally feel his pain. I totally feel his pain. All right. Amount of times I'm like making a video and I like stutter or I just did it just now, or like misspeak and I gotta redo it. It's a problem we all face. It sucks, dude.
It's both a joke and a statement. It's plainly ridiculous, but in a way that says, look how far we've come. What we make in this game today would be unthinkable 20 years ago. There are a total of 7 Old Border Planeswalkers, 3 from 2021 and 4 from 2022. The latter grouping disappoints and undermines the former's seeming purpose by streamlining their rules text to include the clear modal writing form of modern cards.
Okay, so what I'm getting here is that Spice wishes that Old Border stuff felt Old Border and didn't come across as this just like cash grabby sort of buy this Old Border thing to appease your boomer tastes, even though we've changed nothing about how this card actually looked back in the days to match the Old Border aesthetic of Magic. I really would not have used Ravnica Remastered as a example there, because that really just did come off as like reprints bad. I get what he's saying, because his opinion is that Wizards is using nostalgia as a cash grab, a cash cow. Again, for it's like a Hasbro, Daddy Hasbro, Hail Mary Hasbro, voracious, never fulfilled pit that is Hasbro. But like, at the same time, it is good for the game. But then again, I guess the point, I don't think Spice's point of the video is to capture healthy reprint habits. It's more so about like, what the certain things Wizards is doing is for affects the game of Magic as a whole, health wise.
Employing dashes and line breaks in a way that no truly old Magic card would have. These, to me, serve less the function of demonstrating Magic's distance from its past, and more so simply encouraging us to view its past through those same nostalgia goggles. The speed at which the new becomes the past in this game is startling. Only Cult Anvil received its own old border treatment a little over a year ago, and its first and only non-special treatment printing is still, at time of writing, legal in standard.
I agree,
It's
that is silly.
detailed, foreboding, and brutal digital art clashing unfavorably with a frame stuck in the mid-90s of graphics design.
Yep.
Like Martin Scorsese's The Irishman playing on the screen of a Nintendo 3DS. Modern Horizons 3 boasts new cards for the Eldrazi Titans, Emrakul and more, in a recently developed colourless quote-unquote old border, which is just the original artifact old border but intentionally washed out. A nostalgia bump for a past that never...
Dude, holy shit it is. Wait a minute. Hold on. Wait.
Recently developed colourless quote-unquote old border, which is just the original artifact.
Dude, it literally fucking is. It's literally the artifact border copy pasted and then like they changed the colors. Look, there's a light brown blotch right here, accompanied by a really dark like line right here, so you get to a little blotch right here. Blotch, long dark line, blotch. They literally just took the artifact frame from old border cards and made it white. Oh my god. I didn't even realize that, dude. What the hell? That's lame as fuck, dude. Holy shit. I didn't even realize. That is, like, kind of sad. Yeah, like, I've never really liked the old border treatment either. I like it sometimes. Like, funny side story. I actually bought, like, this Golo CDH deck, fully proxied. I spent, like, $40 on a fully proxied deck. So it was high. It was high quality. It looked real, and the whole deck was an old border. 2 weeks after I bought that deck, Golos got banned. The deck wasn't good. I had some like intentionally bad cards in it, just for the sake of doing so to capture the old border theme. Like it had Disenchant in there. It had Disenchant of all things in a CDH deck. Not good. But I only really like old border if you're gonna make your entire deck look old border. That way it still captures the feel, right? If you're trying to capture nostalgia, do it right. Make your whole deck look old border. That's my take on it.
Artifact old border, but intentionally washed out. A nostalgia bump for a past that never existed. Not to belabor our stay in Modern Horizons 3, as the set has yet to fully release at time of writing, but I can't move on without pointing out how this set has all the air of Whispers of the Old Gods.
What is that?
Innocent characters from the game's past are warped by the corrupting influence of an eldritch titan.
Oh.
Whilst it worked for Hearthstone, a game which from the jump was a parody product of sorts, and whilst Eldritch Moon had similar beats specifically for Innistrad, this feels so much more hollow. The once truly unknowable horror of the Eldrazi, whose transparent frame, twisted artwork, and massive casting costs once cemented them as a truly new and feared being, are now repackaged as reference fodder. The mystery and awe once felt is reduced to aesthetic recognizability. The Rootwaller and Goblins still act in accordance to their original drives and their original cards and mechanics. They just do so with tentacles attached and with old border special treatments. Roughly 10% of all of Magic's cards printed in the old border have been printed in the last 3 years. Almost all of them received this framing for their first time in this period, many of them seeing their first normal printing in this time frame too. Some cards have now only been printed in special treatments. Urza, Chief Artificer, can only be played with in either the old border or the inaccurately named borderless versions.
Yeah, I actually really hated this. Like, so Brothers War gave us, like, new cards, but they didn't actually ever get a regular border. There's a couple of creatures where it's like you either get old border or the edgeless border, which is really weird.
It has all the
I kind of like.
Travel
I'll let him continue before I talk about the Eldrazi thing again. Does he continue with Eldrazi? No, it is not. Okay, let me back up here. So, I get what he's saying, right? The Eldrazi used to be this, like, mysterious force, and when you looked at them, you got this feeling of, like, what the hell even is this, right? I'd say the best example of this is Original Emrakul. Original Emrakul was the most expensive card ever printed, period. 15 mana creature that had things not even colored cards got. When it goes into your graveyard from anywhere, shuffle your graveyard into your library. No card ever got it before. Annihilator was a strictly colorless card, colorless effect, and it still kind of is if you ignore, like, Null Drifter technically being mono blue color identity. Like Spice's point to me is that the Eldrazi used to be this mysterious alien force that even players looked at and were like, what the hell is this? What's this thing's deal? Why is this colorless creature bigger than anything green has ever gotten? So I get his point there. And his complaint is that he doesn't like how Eldrazi, in at least their portrayal in Modern Horizons 3, that they've just been reduced to callbacks to older cards. He does not like that, I believe. I don't really think the alien factor is lost yet, though. I mean, we still, as Ugin said in the Zendikar story, the Eldrazi Titans are akin to that of a hand dipping into a pool of water. A fish looks at a hand and thinks all they see is a hand. They can't comprehend the ability of there being more body past the hand. We still don't know what the Eldrazi want, what their deal is, what they were made from, what their purpose in the multiversal ecosystem is. We still don't know what their deal is. But at the same time, I do kind of agree that at this point, most of the mystery is lost. It's just that someday we're going to learn what the Eldrazi's deal is, or maybe we never will, and they'll keep it intentionally hidden forever to preserve some of the identity of Eldrazi. Because I mean, I think, let's be fair here, if we did learn what Eldrazi's deal were, a lot of their mystique and like, whoa, what is that, would be lost. So I guess Spice's point here is that he doesn't like how Eldrazi had been reduced to like a neat little cameo, as opposed to being this like mystical eldritch force that is so unique that even colorless gets their own unique feeling cards.
The mystery and awe once felt is reduced to aesthetic recognizability.
Yeah.
The Rootwalla and goblins still act in accordance to their original drives and their original cards and mechanics. They just do so with tentacles attached and with old border special treatments. Roughly 10% of all of Magic's cards printed in the old border have been printed in the last 3 years. Almost all of them received this framing for their first time in this period, many of them seeing their first normal printing in this time frame too. Some cards have now only been printed in special treatments. Urza, Chief Artificer, can only be played with in either the old border or the inaccurately named borderless versions. It has all the air of travel insurance packages which range from gold to diamond. Our customers deserve nothing short of constant luxury. Normality is literally sometimes not an option. Returning to Ravnica Remastered, Dark Confidant saw a reprint here with brand new art and in the old border for the first time. Its origins as a modern framed player invitational card overwritten to serve a bizarre concoction of simultaneous fresh novelty and faux nostalgia. If Hallowed Fountain was first printed in the modern frame, does that make the frame of today's Magic cards postmodern?
Maybe.
Time Spiral Remastered is truly the pinnacle of this concept.
Okay, again, why do we hate remastered sets? Is it because it's like just trying to cash into players' nostalgia? I feel like people bought remastered sets because they were reprints of good, expensive cards, not because of nostalgia or whatever. Like, my friend group bought Time Spiral not because we like loved Time Spiral and missed it. We bought Time Spiral because we never got to experience it. And Ravnica, I think, is a better example than this, because Ravnica is a much more modern set. I mean, Ravnica was a thing when I was like 10, 12, 14. So I can kind of understand the point of Ravnica Remaster being bad, but Time Spiral, dude?
Curated selection of what was supposed to be a reflection of Magic's past and look into its future, now rendered in uniform sterility. The cards which made Time Spiral Block unique, the bizarre game objects like the self-sabotaging Volcano Hellion and hyper-specific hate piece of Tivadar Thorn, as well as the colour-shifted curiosities like Shrouded Lore and mysterious experiments like the aforementioned Imperial Mask, are mostly absent.
Oh.
The remastered product instead chose to reprint the successful cards, both those that once received special treatment like Doomsday and Tarmogoyf, and those that didn't, Pongify and Children of Corliss to name a few. Cards which have either proven themselves to be powerful game pieces in already existing decks, or which form the basis of a more streamlined draft experience. In sanding off the edges of...
Okay, so... Again, I get what he's saying. He thinks that the remastered sets aren't really a fair portrayal of Magic in general, right? Or I guess the sets in general, right? Why did Shocklands get old border treatments when they were never in old border to begin with? Why is Time Spiral Remastered not getting the original old border effects, right? His complaint here is that the remastered sets aren't the remastered sets aren't fair remasters of original sets. I get that. And I do kind of agree. But I do think that at their core, remastered sets were never really about trying to be the perfect encapsulation of the sets. Because, I mean, think about it, right? I mean, if we did that, wouldn't that kind of nullify the original experience of those sets? Like, how would Time Spiral players who were there during that set feel if, 15 years later, they just re-release a set, exact same, no changes. It's literally just an old set, reprinted, no differences. How would they feel? Right? Like, an example I can more kind of sympathize with is War of the Spark, right? War of the Spark was something you just had to be there for. The between the trailer, the build-up of this years-long story arc, and all the build-up and foreshadowing with Nicol Bolas, you just had to be there during War of the Spark pre-release to just get this sense of like, oh my god. Like, you just had to be there, dude. You just had to be there. That's the only way I can say it. War of the Spark was this, like, just such an insane set for story, build-up, cards. The set in general was just absurd. It was something you just had to be there for. And I think if 10 years later, War of the Spark just got this, like, straight-up card-to-card reprint, I would feel a little, like, not betrayed, but just kind of feeling like my experience was belittled to a degree, because, again, it was something you just had to be there for. War of the Spark is an experience that I, like, if you weren't, War of the Spark is an experience that if you weren't there, you're not going to get it. You're not going to get it. You're just not. You weren't there for the build up from Battle for Zendikar and Origins to Kaladesh and all that. You weren't there when you weren't there when the trailer dropped. So I think if they were to reprint War Spark card to card, that would be kind of like betrayal. Probably isn't the correct word, but it's one word I can think of for people who were there and kept up with the story and the times of Magic during that story arc. So I get what he's saying about how like the remaster sets aren't really a fair portrayal, an accurate portrayal of what those sets were like. But at the same time, I kind of don't really think they should be a 100% perfect capture, because if they were to do that, I think that would kind of belittle the experiences of people who were there when those sets first released, right? Because when you go to pre-release, right? When you go to pre-release and you open those 6 packs, you were there, you played games, you were there. That's an experience you would say you were there for. I was here during Modern Rise 3 pre-release or War Spark pre-release, whatever. I was here. I was there for this. You even get special promo cards for pre-release to say, hey, you were here during this day. They even had little like month and like day numbers on cards and special gold stamps. If we did that for other sets, I think that would kind of just invalidate those experiences. So while I get what he's saying, and I do agree that they aren't perfect portrayals of those sets, I kind of don't really think they should be 100% accurate card-to-card reprints of sets, because that would invalidate players of those times who were there and got to experience those sets firsthand.
Time Spiral block, designers avoided player disappointment in opening double-take-worthy pieces like Force of Savagery's perplexing stat line, and also arguably improved the draft experience. One of the sets I consistently hear touted as modern Magic's best limited environments is Time Spiral Remastered. But it also missed the point of what Time Spiral block originally represented. No longer is there the feeling that this is what Magic could be. That has been replaced with this is what Magic was and is. As you may have also noticed,
which I think is fine, personally.
Once differentiated future and planar shifted cards from the rest were removed, and in doing so, much of their original meaning dissolved. Justin Sweet's frightening composition on the original Blade of the Sixth Pride, the hooked weapons, apocalyptic skies, flayed skin armor, and terrifying snarl of this cat is challenging. The near-perfect white of the ground she stands on gives the impression that we have just snapped this picture with our camera flash, capturing the deadly speed of this warrior as she spins her head towards us before the light even dissipates. This amazing artwork wouldn't fit in the frame it was originally designed to break free from, and has been replaced with a piece by Lars Grant West. By no means an incompetent or meritless composition, but unfortunately conformist in comparison. One of these cards was originally a sneak preview into Magic's potential future. Another is a color-shifted card. Laid out amongst their new contemporaries in Time Spiral Remastered and removed from their experimental frames, however, it is impossible to tell unless you have an astute understanding of established design conventions in Magic or saw them in their original form. Even then, you may have forgotten. New simulacra overlaying the old. This all comes to a philosophically fascinating head with Time Spiral Remastered's remix on the time-shifted theme.
So, just again, I want to reiterate, I understand what Spice is saying here, but I think it's fine. I don't think it's a big enough deal to make a point out of. Like, yes, he's correct. That point is lost. But at the same time, if we start reprinting card to card, if we start reprinting like perfect 100% card to card sets, like, oh, let's just take Khans here and just push the set out again because we can, like, no differences, no new cards, that sort of thing. I think that would just kind of do more harm than good. I'd rather reprints happen in a creative and ambitious way rather than just getting old sets reprinted. as cool as that would be for people who never got to experience it, like, Alara is my favorite block of all time. The art direction was perfect. Every single thing about Alara was perfect to me. And this coming from someone who never got to experience Alara. If we got an Alara remastered set where it's all 3 sets smashed together into one like perfect draft experience, I would love that. I'd be fine with that. I would love that. Sure, maybe it's not a perfect rendition of Alara, but it's still a way to recapture that original feeling and like aura of Alara, the block. And also adding to this, I believe remastered sets have always been highly praised, to my knowledge. I don't recall anyone looking at remastered sets and saying that this is bad because it doesn't accurately capture the feel of the original sets. I think the point on Time Spiral is fair here from Spice. I do agree that without the old borders, it's hard to tell what's happening with like the callbacks and future looks, all that sort of thing. But at the same time, Ravnica Remastered, I think it was fine in terms of capturing the old feel. The only complaint being old borders being not a great fit there.
Here, cards printed around the time of or after original Time Spiral are reprinted in the same retro frame as the original set's time-shifted cards were. The retro frame Eternal Witness asked you to remember Magic's past, whilst Chris Rand's new artwork obfuscates the uncomfortable reality of the original card's artist and her politics. A simulacra of the original Eternal Witness, and the sole card in this series to not be printed with its original artwork. Quite the contrast to the original Time Spiral team's decision to reprint Enduring Renewal and Darkness with artwork from their original artist, as all of the original time-shifted cards were. Forgive me for engaging in lesser evilism here, but I would argue that an artist being a secret right-winger who got caught liking reactionary and bigoted tweets, and who apparently donated her own artwork to a QAnon conspiracy podcast so anti-Semitic that YouTube deleted their channel, is slightly less bad than one sharing all the drawings of swastikas they've made whilst comparing Hitler to Jesus and grieving his death all on their Facebook page. May all Nazis' teeth rot like his have. The fascinating part is that none of these cards needed to be chosen for reprinting like this. Magic had 50 or so sets under its belt by the time Time Spiral released, and well over quadruple that when it was remastered. There was no need to seek nostalgia through either a false sanitization of the past or through an honest remembrance of the multiple times you worked with one of America's most repulsive fascists. And believe me, I've seen that show. That's some stiff competition your man was beating out there. Fuck.
Nice.
Dipping back into Universe Beyond, we can see this sanitization come through in new ways of rewriting unreality. Ace, fearless rebel, depicts the Seventh Doctor's companion striking a Dalek. We see her jacket emblazoned with badges and patches as it was in the show, but the red star on her sleeve stands out in particular. Every other adornment is busy with lettering, symbols, and colours. This one is a red void, feeling out of place amongst the rest. Of course, fans of the show would know that this patch was, in fact, filled with a Soviet hammer and sickle. Ace was a radical working-class teenager who we are introduced to already in trouble with the British state after she burnt down a house. She did so in a fit of rage after neo-Nazis threw a Molotov cocktail into her friend Manisha's house. Nazis, of course, being first and foremost hyper-reactionary anti-communists. This card is a simulation of Ace. Herself a simulation of, at the time, contemporary British working-class anxieties. The dismantling of worker and trade union power, as well as the social democratic welfare state under Thatcher. the rise of fascist movements like the British National Party and National Front, and the waning promise of a proletarian alternative as the curtains began to close on the USSR. Here, the hammer and sickle is scrubbed, leaving an appropriately empty star, the symbol of nebulous radicalism with all the uncomfortable and specific politics wiped clean. Designers, at the behest of the bourgeois owner class, are compelled to explore exciting notions and artifacts, themes of rebellion and reprinted game tools, through true nostalgia goggles, where only the positive, marketable and discourse-free elements shall be remembered and rejoiced. Of course, the inherent irony of attempting to depoliticize remembrance is that it highlights exactly what you seek to forget. The desire for a sterile past comes through not just from WotC, but from the player base itself. When the Universes Beyond 40k Commander decks were released, players were grateful for a reprint of Darkness, one that both lowered the card's price and also came without a decaying scumfuck's artwork printed on it. This despite the fact that players have, and always have had, the power to simply proxy their own versions with the artwork removed, or replaced with any artwork they wish to see instead, for free, outside of tournament play. Much as was the case with the initial wave of backlash against the Walking Dead secret lair, where there was a self-important content mill-led attempt to create a new play structure that...
Oh boy, dude, I was here for this. I was here for that. That was a whole thing.
...banned the use of Universe Beyond cards, there is a desire for authority to set the parameters of the simulation. Asking for someone to not play certain cards around your table requires one to push against the imaginary bounds of Disneyland. It's uncomfortable. It necessitates interpersonal conflict. It is easier to be than it is to become, and rather than be a bother for even a single second, most of us would prefer it if our wishes were simply imposed upon us by Mickey Mouse himself. But do we even want the future? What on earth does the future have in store for us? A climate catastrophe? Nuclear war? AI overriding all creativity? What does the future actually look like? When was the last time that you had hope for, hell, experienced a narrative that saw the future as a hopeful place? I see snippets from this video often floating around as a positive vision of tomorrow.
Oh, here we go.
Solar punk, an identity as quickly packaged and commodified as it was named. It's an animation envisioning a bright future of clean energy, unalienated labor assisted by green technology, a community interwoven with family and work, flying public transport, and balance between the metropole and rural settlements. Here, the future is a sunny Studio Ghibli vision. Indeed, the score is even by longtime Studio Ghibli composer Joe Hisaishi. It is an undeniably beautiful and hopeful snapshot of what could be. The sole catch of this animation being that it's a commercial for yogurt. Once you notice it, the product placement ruptures your enjoyment. The voiceover, which talks about the necessity of planting...
You know what's crazy? I had that exact same experience early on in the video when I noticed the Chobani thing appear in the little, like, flash thing he keeps doing. I noticed the Chobani thing appear. I'm like, wait a minute, why is he doing a fucking Chobani ad? Now I get it.
Of how a business is only as good as its people. The massive fucking letters directing you to a dairy product company at the end. Even the studio responsible for the animation admit in its YouTube description that this is, quote, not a perfect utopia, almost certainly in reference to the jarring disposable plastic dotting this otherwise sustainable vision. As the most popular comment under this video reads, in this universe, people would absolutely not be eating and drinking out of single-use Chobani cups and cartons. Lamau. Lamau indeed. But even Dear Alice, the name of this commercial, holds more hope than Magic's visions of tomorrow. The few Magic worlds which explore the future do so in either terrifying or conservative ways. Many, if not all, of the individual aspects of New Phyrexia are twisted parodies of historical societal pillars and ills.
I'd also like to say that I'd also like to say that I think Obi-Wan also didn't really do a good job of capturing original Phyrexia. I think Obi-Wan's art was much brighter than New Phyrexia's was, which kind of just goes, which I think lends to this point about how the future is not all that great, because I feel like whenever we head back to a old planet with very unique vibes, it feels like it almost never does a good job of actually capturing the original intent of the sets themselves. Like, I would love to go back to Alara someday, but I also know that there's a very good chance that when we do, the art direction is not going to be the same, and it's not gonna feel like Alara. It's gonna feel like a washed out attempt to adhere to fans of Alara.
Orthodox religion, social Darwinism, forced assimilation, etc. But the overarching narrative of these new Phyrexians, all will be one, represents a fundamentally revolutionary mode of existence. A totalitarian unity synonymous with most Western pictures of pure communism, intertwined with the background radiation of our proto-fascistic fear of the bodily other. The horror of the collective superseding the individual is hammered home by the cruel genetic experimentation, body modification, and brainwashing, all made possible with advanced and arcane technology. Mirrodin before it was similarly technological, but held no revelatory social advancements. All 5 cultures were either rooted in semi-feudal relations, bands of noble and ignoble savages, or spiritual and opportunistic sectarians, with one sole group of aspirational technocrats. The Videlcan, who I assume would be called blue folk or brainkin if they were designed today, are obsessed with progress and discovery, the only people really looking forward in this world. They, in turn, become one of the first people to be swayed and overtaken by Phyrexia as it grows, the representatives of the future in this narrative being the harbingers of its catastrophe. Even the outside IPs now in Magic which examine the future are fraught with terror, namely Fallout and 40k. The former displays the horrors of a nuclear apocalypse born in a Cold War which has never gone away. The latter displays an utter cynicism for what comes next, where societies whose rules and structures break away from our human past and present are either decayed or embattled by an ascendant humanity driven forward by hyper-fascism and a dogmatic rejection of curiosity and development. The most hopeful representation of the future is found in Kamigawa Neon Dynasty, which presents an illuminated faux Japan where spirituality and technology are interwoven. But this is a hollow hope, a replication of the modern liberal order.
Is it?
Private property, crime, jobs, adverts, personal vehicles, etc., but with LED decals. Characters from a millennia ago still walk the streets. Ancient trees shelter skyscrapers. Dozens of sagas retell the tales of legends whose stories are largely reflected in the world around them. The Aki are still upstart, an emperor still rules. If you discount the mecha and holograms, what is actually futuristic about this place?
I mean, when anyone refers to the future, I don't think they're expecting total, like, reconstruction of their social, like, structure. Like, I don't think when anyone says, oh, I can't wait for the future, where our future is the total destruction and rebuilding of our government so that it functions better. Like, no one ever really says that, for better or for worse, right? Like, I don't think anyone ever refers to the future as being, like, a different form of, like, government and just social hierarchy. They're more so just referring to how the world works. Like, it's you know, we get light speed trains instead of regular trains. We get flying cars instead of regular cars, where we gotta deal with traffic and bullshit, right? So I don't really think what he says here is like, he's trying to say that, like, the future is never portrayed well here, but I also think it's unfair to say that to an extent, because I don't think anyone ever refers to the future the way he is in his example of Kamigawa here either.
The best that we can hope for in the future, a more illuminated and semi-real landscape to accompany our floating drive to the office?
Yeah?
When Times Square installed its first LCD billboard, did the future arrive? Or did the mundane just get a little more advanced?
Both,
When the majority of our media
I'd say.
looks backwards fondly or forward in fear, it is no surprise that we see
Thanks, Spice8Rack. I appreciate it.
comfort in known unrealities. Nuclear apocalypse is terrifying, but fallout is reassuring. This is a negative comfort, though, in that it is, in reality, only the absence of the discomfort found in pushing against the status quo, both materially and culturally. As Mark Fisher lays out, and as Berardi argues, the intensity and precarity of late capitalist work culture leaves people in a state where they are simultaneously exhausted and overstimulated. The combination of precarious work and digital communication leads to a besieging of attention. Retro offers the quick and easy promise of a minimal variation on an already familiar satisfaction.
Okay.
We stick with what we know because our time is stretched so thin that seeking the new is too great a challenge to pose on the gaps between labor and information overstimulation. Not that the new is even easy to seek out. A handful of near-monopolistic media companies program what we watch, the distinct majority of it being sequels, remakes, reboots, universe expansions, and pastiches.
Yeah?
Do you want to watch your superhero movie, your superhero show, or your show about why superheroes are bad? Complete with all the brand tie-ins mocked by its own text, itself being a sanitized remake of a shit and horrifically bigoted series of graphic novels. All of which I'm sure will be coming to a Universe Beyond tie-in in 4 years' time.
Oh, God.
Long after the heyday of the IP's popularity. As Fisher continues, despite all its rhetoric of novelty and innovation, neoliberal capitalism has gradually but systemically deprived artists of the resources necessary to produce the new. In the UK, the post-war welfare state and higher education maintenance grants constituted an indirect source of funding for most of the experiments in popular culture between the 1960s and 80s. As public service broadcasting became marketized, there was an increased tendency to turn out culture productions that resembled what was already successful. Does that remind you of anything? You cannot be what you cannot see, and through the commodification of all artifacts of human endeavor, from shelter to love to play, we are being denied a vision of the future.
So his point now is his point has transitioned now to, we just keep getting like reprints and remakes of like old content, as opposed to pushing towards the future in Magic. But I mean, we're still always getting. I'm confused now. If like, is his criticism of the future regarding just Magic, or is he regarding that in like everything? Because he brought up like the Disney remakes and all that. I'm like, my brain is kind of starting to get scrambled now. I ain't gonna lie. I'm sitting here. I'm like, are we even talking about Magic anymore? Or are we talking about things outside of Magic at this point? I'm starting to not know. Assuming we're still in Magic, the story is still progressing, right? We're still getting new sets every, what is it, 2 weeks now? I don't even know. So, I mean, we are always going to be marching towards the future, but at the same time, like, I do kind of feel like after this plot they're setting up, we're not going to really have anything left. I do think Magic does need something new, to be honest. Like we had the Eldrazi, we had the Phyrexians. It's looking like they're gonna make the Fomori their own thing, but I'm not sure how they do that without actually retconning the 2 original Fomori cards to actually be Fomori and not giants. Which, if anything, would just lead to Spice's point more about how we're just recycling old content over and over and over again with a new coat of paint. Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a point I understand for sure at this point. My brain's starting to get a little scrambled now because I'm not sure if we're even still in the realm of Magic the Gathering anymore.
Eat well, Alice, and keep planting those seeds. Because how we eat today feeds tomorrow.
This all comes with the caveat that analysis of why Magic today is flawed should not retroactively uphold Magic's past as some kind of perfect system that was only ruined when Street Fighter tie-ins were being made. This is just a simulation of nostalgia responding to the simulacra of nostalgia being pumped out as new old border cards. Magic has always existed as either a commodity or aspirationally as one. This is and was a product to sell. Many errors have been made, many potentials have been disregarded in pursuit of profit. It has admittedly gotten far more acute in the last 5 years. The decision to abandon the silver border in order that unsets would have a larger audience to market to is a pretty clear example of that in practice, and also of the less ideal effects it has had, both within the game environment of this highly criticized set itself and on formats like Legacy, currently in the grip of discourse as to how to deal with sticker cards in high-level play.
All right. I'm going to play Blank Goblin, which is known as Name Sticker Goblin.
Oh, no.
In the circles that I roll in. When this creature enters the battlefield, you may put a name
Fucking
sticker
Mind
on
Goblin,
Legacy
dude.
play.
Oh my god.
I seriously feel like I'm blacking out right now.
Not only legal in Legacy, but like actively playable.
Bring at least 10 unique sticker sheets. No repeat sheets. That's cheats.
Of course, however, this is not to say that shrinking innovations and questionable business practices have produced a wholly bad entertainment product either. For all of my griping about Outlaws at Thunder Junction, or whatever the name of that set is, I'll be the first to say that Saddle is both derivative of and an improvement on Crew, being far more tactical and with wider design space than the latter. Games are still...
Which Wizards has always done. Wizards has many times looked back at old mechanics and said, okay, how can we make this better? That's a thing Wizards has done before many times. So, and I think he knows that. I'm not saying that to try and like counterpoint him. It's something that Wizards has done, which I would say, like it kind of lands at both points, right? It is kind of pushing towards the future, expanding on the old and making it better, but at the same time, you're using the old to push towards the future. So, kind of just fuels both points to a degree, right?
Still fun. New cards can still be interesting. Designers are still creating competent and fun limited environments. The future is not dead, remember. Just slowly being cancelled. The idea that Magic has sold out as a result of Universes Beyond is also silly.
I agree.
Once this game had the categorization of counterculture thrust upon it during the satanic panic of the 90s, and where older stories told more unique and less derivative tales, at least in detail if not in broad structure and message, the game, and thus its marketability, has always come first. Marshall McLuhan's erudite theory that the medium is the message remains significant in our contemporary media analysis and in our understanding of Magic. Whilst the intertwining of story and gameplay is what sets Magic apart from its less lore-heavy contemporaries, the story, the message, has never and will never be more important than the medium, the game commodity.
Of course.
Fortnite got a secret lair for the same reason that Annie Flash's identity as a First Nations woman was included only to be left superficial, warped, and in the story's background for the same reason that, in response to the satanic panic, much of Magic's art was changed and the demon subtype was temporarily removed. The game sells better this way. We've spent the last amount of time bemoaning hyperreality, my place in it, and the desperate futurelessness of it, but what can we actually do? Baudrillard theorized that because the stagnation of culture arose from constant marketization and consumption, only gift-giving can break free from the monotony. To defy the system with a To defy the system with a gift to which it cannot respond save by its own collapse and death, nothing, not even the system, can avoid this symbolic obligation. It is in this trap that the only chance of catastrophe for Capital remains. In my interpretation, because a gift holds symbolic value beyond expressions of exchange and use, only counter-gifts can be properly exchanged in response. A gift given to you by a loved one, which sets them back $50, and a gift given by another, which costs them nothing beyond labor, are usually ascribed different symbolic values untethered to their exchange value, and responded to in kind and with only a gift itself. If social reproduction becomes more propelled by this concept of gift exchange over exchange value, capital will simply be unable to maintain itself as the foundation of society. Of course, however, this is easier said than done when we need money to live, and besides, capitalism has already partially commodified the concept of gift giving. We can see it in the cultural non-entity of Fortnite. It's currently borrowing from Roblox, another late capitalist media monster.
We are? It is?
To create new maps, rule systems, and models that will lessen the load on the owner's capital expenditures and allow them to hire fewer and fire more workers.
Oh.
The encouragement of content being created for free under the guise of community, but with the hope, if not goal, of generating surplus value from mass unpaid, voluntary child labor. Online commentators, myself included, fall into this as well. I criticize and praise Magic the Gathering in ways I believe are sound and in good faith, but I also promote the proliferation of the game.
Yeah.
Both explicitly, remember, code SPICE at checkout for coolstuffinc.com for 5%
Sponsorship!
off
Sponsorship, let's go!
Not a bit, but an actual sponsor read. But also organically. The comments under gameplay videos I appear in tell of how I got the user into the game. I am an advert for Wizards of the Coast that they don't have to pay for. Most everybody who makes videos like I do are the same. Even in critiquing the elements I feel are bad, I cannot help but uphold the good as a counterpoint.
Yeah, I mean, like, that's how the system works, though, right? Like, you gotta get your name out there if you want to make money from doing what you want to do, man. That's how it works in the world. Like, you gotta. Everything is connected, right? Like, if you don't make enough, garner enough attention, then the companies decide that you're not worthy of payment. So I mean, it's tough, right? I mean, it's a tough truth to face, but I mean, at the end of the day, I mean, world runs on money, and if unfortunately some companies do exploit that a little too much, and they don't pay people enough. It's more common than ever now, actually, where workers just not get paid enough for their time and effort, and as a result, they literally cannot pay for rent. It's tough, and especially in the content creation world, right? I mean, like, you have to, a lot of people go a long time making content and not getting any sort of like financial reimbursement for their time. But I mean, unfortunately, that's just the system we find ourselves in, where it's like, hey, this is what you gotta go through if you want to make money doing this sort of thing.
Innovative mechanics, great stories, a medium to socialize and to make friends through. I think back to that Fisher quote where he's laying out Berardi's thesis on why we seek nostalgia, and particularly retro. How our overstimulation of information has led us to seek familiar satisfaction. I think about the videos that I watch on YouTube, video essays about media that I have never consumed, video games, movies, books. I think about the videos that I make, what I'm choosing to utilize my creativity to make, analysis about other people's products. I wonder how much of my engagement with genuine creativity, as much as it can exist under neoliberalism, comes regurgitated through video essay form. I wonder how much you, watching this video and presumably others that I have made, also feel about this. But we are not without hope and a means to act. Gift giving is not, cannot be totally recuperated by capital. Indeed, the fragility of capital's stranglehold on free expression can sometimes be revealed in beautiful acts of gift giving itself. Dear Alice has a non-commodified version, produced well within the bounds of transformative fair use by Waffle to the Left, a video essayist from Canada. In it, all references to the dairy company have been scrubbed, the music removed, and the voiceover replaced with diegetic sounds painstakingly stitched together from Creative Commons files. Suddenly, the narrative presented to us in this ad, one of planting seeds for tomorrow, of good business and caring about the earth, all in liminal service to the goal of selling you a philanthropist's expensive yogurt, is ejected. In its place, we simply see a potential for the future. People collaborating, sharing food, going to school, simply existing amongst clean technology. Subtle changes such as the fruit being harvested and placed in a trailer marked commons rather than donations demonstrates this far more radical and revolutionary imagining of our future. The quiet piece of Waffle to the Left's remaking of Dear Alice is still a simulation of a simulation. Still a product in as far as it is monetized on YouTube.
You will never hear me admonishing a creative for securing some scratch in a non-exploitative way under capitalism, though. I'm a communist, not a dickhead.
Right.
But this radical act of allowing the artist and animator's vision of the future to step out from the shackles and shadow of the necessary corporate product placement is beautiful to behold. Even the note on the fridge at the end, the script for the original voiceover, fits in with this demarketized vision. The line, "A business is only as good as its people, so treat them well," is pinned beside a Polaroid of an old woman and a much younger Alice. But even in the original, the animation shows us not a business owner, but a co-worker. At most, the matriarch of a family organization. As a result, this line in the ad feels jarring, an obvious corporate addition. In this non-commodified version, this line can instead be read as a relic of a past generation. The idea of a business, of ownership, naught but a faded memory, magnetized to a fridge door. The sky at the end, free from the company logo, is open and vast. The shot lingers here, originally to maximize the time the branding remained on screen, but now simply holding for the sake of enjoying the view. It feels uncaged, all done for no other reason than to give the gift of the animator's art back to them and to the world untainted. You forget even the spelling of the word that used to block the full sky from your vision as you watch this version. As mentioned towards the start, when Netrunner perished as a commodity, it was unofficially resurrected by a community of fans who had maintained and developed its structure of play for no other reason than they love the game. To create and to do as a gift to others and to yourself is a radical act. But what benefits others, be it maintaining infrastructure for a genuine community of people to enjoy entertainment media, or helping your friends to organize their workplaces and communities, cannot help but transform into mutual aid. To
Right.
give the gift of aid to others is to invariably relish in the fruits of it for yourself, be it through a better experience in a game or the increased pressure for your own company to improve working conditions. And it's through such demarketized networks that true experimentation can arise. Demarketization is indeed a necessary goal to reach in order to escape this malaise. As Mark Fisher deftly pointed out over a decade ago in response to news that Jonathan Ross would be receiving an £18 million contract to present for the BBC, imagine if that was instead spent, risked on what British television sorely lacks: writers. You could pay scores of writers a good wage for years. The BBC ought to be in a position to cushion its creative staff from the pressure of producing immediate successes. And contrary to the neoliberal logic, which insists that people are best motivated by fear and money, it is that cushioning which facilitates a certain kind of cultural entrepreneurialism.
Okay. So I'm sorry, my brain is starting to get fried at this point. I've been for so long as I get to this last 10-minute stretch. So the point Spice is making is that as something just grows and becomes more successful, we start to do things not out of passion or love for the company, the game, the media, whatever the core purpose of our creation is, and instead we do whatever we can just to keep it afloat and keep profits going up and up and up and up. We saw it with we see it with Hasbro. We see it right now with Wizards and Hasbro. We used to see like really cool, interesting ideas now in Magic, but nowadays it's just constant regurgitation of old sets, old ideas, old philosophies. Just the new coat of paint, right? We had Kamigawa, and now it's Kamigawa but LED, right? And now all these points earlier are starting to come encapsulated, where it's just like instead of actually what's the word? Instead of actually innovating, we're just taking old content, old ideas, and giving it a new coat of paint, or just giving it more stuff in general, because Wizards has to stick with what works in order to appease the voracious, never-ending pit that is Hasbro. And I agree with him, right?
I can attest to this. Almost all of the videos I have made, which I consider to be my best, have come out after my Patreon earnings rose from generous to the point of being livable. I have the time and space to do deep dives and philosophical examinations like this because you lot subsidize my ability to disappear for months on end and learn to read text that I have no formal training to properly understand. But it shouldn't just be a small group of lucky creatives, most of us well positioned already within the social and economic structures we exist in, who get to experience this chance to creatively experiment. Publicly owned and funded creative infrastructure is just one necessary step towards a more liberated creative output.
And I mean genuinely publicly owned. Not just taxpayer-subsidized crash pads for nepo babies and client journalists gatekept by reactionaries who are selling it off piecemeal to the American market, who we are increasingly subservient to.
As I wrote this conclusion, Chris Cox, the multimillionaire CEO of Hasbro, who
Right.
again oversaw the firing of over 1,000 employees in the run-up to Christmas,
Evil.
either to reach annual growth goals or, I don't know, to make the Grinch look like a wimpy bitch, has come out and extolled the virtues of AI-generated content in upcoming Magic and D&D products. AI, the misnomer attributed to machine learning image scraping software and procedural text generators, represents a new postmodern apex for simulation. Where once creatives would be pressured by the results of algorithmic analysis and market predictions to replicate culture in new monetizable ways, AI does away with the pretense and simply steals, uncredited, the work of past generations of artists, writers, editors, and innovators. So-called AI slaps together disconnected artistic elements or individual creatives' entire portfolios in a profane amalgam of a permanently recycled culture. A digital Habsburg, if you will. The structure of...
I want to say real quick that, like, AI should not take a role in Magic at all. Like, the only people who think AI is good are middle-aged to old people who aren't able to recognize when something is AI. I have never looked at an AI piece of art and thought, wow, that's so cool looking, because it's so just incredibly obvious that there is a complete and total lack of soul and passion into it, because it all just looks like the same copy pasted slop. I've had my parents show me AI art before, and I'm like, that's AI, and they're like, what how can you tell that's AI? And like they just can't tell. I mean, people in my generation have been able to tell it's AI very easily, but it's just, I think older people tend to struggle to realize that. Not all, obviously, but I would say a majority is in the older age demographic of that degree. Like, Magic at its core is a game that is just held together by people. Without commissioning tons and tons of artists, the cards art cannot exist. Without tons and tons of designers, of human designers on the team, we can't have great and interesting fun designs. Without players, the game can't sell well. Without LGSs existing, players won't have a good place to play and gather to play Magic. I think if we I truly do think that if AI does end up playing a significant role in Magic the Gathering, Magic will, as Spice said before, nothing ever truly dies, but I do think that will lead to a massive disappearance and abandonment from players regarding the game. I 100% expect Magic to take a massive hit in sales should they introduce AI, or even worse, have to close shop entirely and eventually release a final set, which hopefully will never happen. But I think it is a totally real possibility should AI end up replacing one, or God forbid, multiple roles of Magic in general regarding design and just the game's connective tissue that keeps everything running and smooth and happy together.
Of neoliberalism frustrates our ability to envision the future and to create the new, and AI, at the whim of our ruling class, enshrines this fetter as the sole and most profitable mode of production. Imagination is unnecessary when the market desires only replication. Today, as Disneyland was to Baudrillard in the 80s, AI represents the regeneration of the imaginary as waste treatment plants are elsewhere. Everywhere.
I'm loving the
today,
accent,
one
bro.
must
It's
recycle
capturing it
waste.
perfectly.
The dreams, the phantasms, the historical, fairy-like, legendary imagination of children and adults is a waste product. The first toxic excrement of a hyper-real civilization. I don't know why Baudrillard is from the Bronx now, but he is, baby. I love the Mets. Hyperreality may dominate our lives and the lives of those around us, and both neoliberal hegemony and the fascism it incubates are designed to extort our ability and desire to give freely. But through organization, mutual assistance, and supporting grassroots culture, born from honest agony and defiance under this system and not passed down from on high, we may yet imagine a future and bring it to bear. You have the power to picture tomorrow and to create art that will transport you there. It may not be successful. It may only be appreciated by a dozen locals at an open mic or 14 followers on social media, but it is yours, and it is free. And it is free. To summarize my thoughts on the fortnightification of Magic the Gathering, Do not be comforted by the offerings of a system designed to extort you. Be comforted by the gifts of those railing against it, and join us to fight for a different way. Okay, so the Emperor's children are a corrupted space marine squad who worship the chaos god Slanesh, led by the serpentine and twisted Primarch Fulgrim. He was corrupted by the sword. You promised you wouldn't make him. No! A massive thank you to Leo Verissimo for creating the Dear Alice VCR segments of this video. A big old thank you to CoolStuffInc.com for sponsoring this channel, and a extra special thank you to all of my patrons who continue to support my work, whose names include Mopkins, 1234, I declare a class war, 3D0, a communist.
All right. Shouts to all of them. Thank you all for keeping this man afloat. God damn, that's a lot of fucking patrons, dude. Holy shit, that's insane. That is insane. All right. So what do I think about the fortification of Magic? I think everything Spice had said here is right. I know I did disagree with this point about the sets being like, to be devil's advocate here. I do think he kind of portrayed the whole idea of like energy and Kaladesh versus Modern Rise and that sort of thing. I think he did that like kind of not great. I do think the future of Magic is cause for concern, as I mentioned before. Or, well, as I've thought before in my life. Like, if AI becomes a major role in it, that will be bad. I cannot see Magic being AI being a good thing for Magic. I can't see it being a possibility. I do agree that we are in a place right now where it feels like we are just kind of taking old ideas and just kind of giving them a new coat of paint and regurgitating them. We see it right now with Modern Horizons 3 and Eldrazi, right? And Eldrazi are cool. Lots of players love Eldrazi. I love Eldrazi. But at the same time, I mean, when was the last thing we got something truly new, right? Something that was totally unique to Magic, right? We have Eldrazi, Phyrexians. What else is there, right? When was the last time we've gotten something that's truly new and unique and fresh for Magic? Was it new Phyrexia? Well, no, not even that, because Phyrexians existed back in like old border days. Was it the Eldrazi? The Eldrazi? Why did I say it like that? Was it the Eldrazi? The original Eldrazi in well, Rise of the Eldrazi, World Wake block, Zendikar block? Was it then? I don't know at this point, honestly. I mean, you could say that the Fomori, if they even become a main thing, you could say that those are unique. But even then, like, the Fomori originally was just like a random surname on a Magic card given to a giant. Are they gonna errata giant the Fomori Nomad and Ruhan of the Fomori to be Fomori and not giants? I can't see that happening, but maybe. But of which even if they did, right? Even if they did do that, I think that would just lend even more to Spice's point of how we just take old content, give it a new coat of paint. The new coat of paint in this case being the subtype giant on those two cards being changed to Fomori, and just regurgitated. I think that would just push Spice's point. I think we are kind of entering a spot now where it's just we're just sticking with what works as opposed to truly innovating and trying new things to try and make Magic this ever expanding, ever innovating game. I think Spice makes a great point there. I think the future is something that is a cause to be concerned about, and I'm hoping that Hasbro kind of shortens the leash on Wizards and lets them just do what they want again and not have to be this massive money-making role for Hasbro. because I would love it if that happened. I would love it if Wizards finally had some creative freedom again and didn't have to keep churning out product after product after product for Hasbro. Whenever this video gets out, it's not gonna be 2 hours. I'm gonna try and like cut things so that it's not just Spice's video with my face in it, because I think a video is worth a watch on its own, and I wouldn't want to take views away from Spice's content at all. So thank you all for watching. This video will be out at some point, hopefully sooner rather than later, but I never know nowadays. My arena streams are down right now because my account is busted, and no matter what I do, I can't fix it. All I can do now is wait for Wizards to patch the issue out, which who knows how long I could take. This stream was almost 4 hours long, which I have not done in so long. I'm feeling heaviness in my eyes just from doing this video. Thank you all for watching. Thank you all for tuning in. I will see you all next time.